Welcome to The Bar, your source for all things weightlifting, where we believe there's strength in every story. We're your hosts, Jess Roebuck-Slaney and Aaron Holtz, weightlifters, coaches and British weightlifting technical officials. To The Bar is partnered with Lu Xiaozhen UK. So don't forget to like, subscribe and follow so you never miss an episode. And check out our website for Lu Xiaozhen UK gear, official To The Bar merchandise and our professional media and photography services. The links are in the captions. And now for today's episode. Enjoy.
Lovely. All right. Welcome to The Bar. Episode 2, Season 3. Still not really sure how we're this far in because we've got no idea what we're doing. No. But I'm Jess.
I'm Aaron.
And our guest today is Kristian McPhee.
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello. So I think most of the people that are listening or watching this podcast in whatever medium they're listening or watching will know you from all things British weightlifting. I mean, the illustrious career you've had with them, every national, international competition that you've been to. I'm pretty sure it feels like you've occupied every single role they've got within the performance team over there. So I think most people will know you from that, but also as head coach director of London Strength and head coach of Brunel Weightlifting, which is where we're doing this episode today. Amazing career for somebody who is still not a master. Which
surprises technically,
me.
Yeah.
What on earth?
Yeah.
I wanted to dive straight in really with the question of how did we get to this point of having you sat at the other side of the table when you started off in parkour?
Yeah. Well, I think if you look at the timeline of when I started, weightlifting was growing the same time kind of CrossFit was growing it, so it wasn't in isolation. Strength and conditioning was a huge kind of thing trying to make its way into parkour because a lot of us had sore knees, and one of my friends ended up doing a strength and conditioning course at St Mary's University, and he said, look guys, this will be great for your tendonitis, like why don't you come and learn some strength training? And obviously before that I just thought it was bodybuilding and steroids and all that kind of stuff, so I didn't have a clue. And again, that's a testament to how poor the access to gyms was back then, and free weights wasn't possible. So St Mary's University used to let in under 18s under supervision, so I had to go supervised by my friends. But I think my first session I back squat 110. I didn't even know what the exercise was. I've got it on video somewhere as well. DV camera.
I love it. Yeah. I love it.
Because parkour people, that's what we used to do. And then after that, I think I ended up doing up to maybe 120 5x5, and then I did a ski season, so I didn't do any training. My knees were already hurt enough from skiing. And then when I came back, they said, look, Olympic weightlifting can get your jump even bigger. But I came back from skiing, I could still do 120 for sets of 5 or something. My friend had trained.
You're in a pair of Vans as well.
I was, yeah. No, K-Swiss, I think. But my friend was doing weightlifting the whole time and his squat hadn't moved. But he'd snatched 115, like Bobby. He's a really good parkour guy if you want to check him out. Overhuman, I think his name is on Instagram. But he's really good at building and climbing stuff now. But he's one of the most talented guys I've ever come across. So most of the stuff I did in my life, like climbing, parkour, weightlifting, all came through Bobby. He lives in Putney and he works out of physical culture as well, I think. So that's a historical gym.
Yeah, I've got a friend that goes there.
Super cool, yeah. Weird, but it was cool. And so we kind of got taught properly at the beginning, I would say, which is not always the case. And it was all for performance to help parkour, but no one taught weightlifting as an accessory back then. So we ended up going down to Crystal Palace first with Keith Morgan. Mm-hmm. And I remember he said I was really tight in my first session. And I'm thinking, I thought I was functional parkour guy, and I wasn't at all. Obviously, no one's done an overhead squat in any other shape or form back then. So then I did about a month, and I was commuting 3 hours return trip just to get to Crystal Palace. And just too hard. So I carried on doing strength training in my friend's shed. Chris Keithley, he's another parkour guy. He built everything in his garden.
Nice.
And so we trained there. We used to do glute hand raises in the door frame as well, because he had pull-up bars at 3 different levels, so you could kind of do muscle ups and rings in the ceiling. And it was just his nan's bungalow he ended up buying. So
I love it.
It was really raw back then. But so I tried to clean. I've got some cleans somewhere on my computer as well, really bad cleans. I thought I was doing them well, but I was moving 1 foot at a time and with metal plates. But But yeah, so then I went to watch Bobby at a London South East competition, which used to be the biggest competitions back in the day. You know, really only Crystal Palace, Woking used to host the most common competitions back then in the South. And then I sat next to a dad, and the dad said, you know, what are you here for? I said, I'm here to watch my friend. And he goes, my son trains at Brunel, and I live like, 10 minutes away. But I didn't know there was a club here because we had no website, no phone number, nothing. So it was impossible to find clubs back then. But he insisted. He said, look, go and speak to Mike Pearman. And I was like, I was after. And then he like dragged me and said, look, he wants to learn weightlifting. So Mike said, just turn up to this place we're in now on Tuesday at 4. Right, that's it. No other way to know. And I just literally turned up. The door was locked back then. So after a certain time, Richard, who's kind of run this place for years, he used to work 9 to 5 or 9 to 4 on the desk, and then he would go. And then the only way you get in is if someone sees you or you have a membership card. And because it was an unmanned facility, this was just an athletic centre that happened to have some platforms in it. Jeez. And then so I managed to wave someone down, and I got in, and then he said, "Oh, you found it." and there was Andy Rugg. I think he's 3 times British champ. I think super heavyweight training. Ross Roberts and Steve Cole. 3 crazy people just training. Had no idea what anyone was doing. And then then Mike, because Mike knew I'd been to Palace, for like a few weeks before, a year ago. He just said, "Right, show me how to snatch." And then I just started snatching, and that's how I learned. Was just there was no starting,
no intro to
no
so do a snatch.
Yeah. That's why I dislocated my shoulder within 2 months. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, but that's how I got into weightlifting from there.
It's a pretty incredible story, really. I would be hunting that dad down and saying thank you, because the career that you've built out of it since.
Well, truth be told, I believe Pearman may have said something a bit harsh to his son, because he kept going away and not really training very well. So by the time I arrived, the son had actually quit. So we replaced each other. But the weird part is, the kid was Bradley Barnes. So Bradley Barnes used to train at St Mary's as well. And there's videos of Mike Pearman coaching the Brunel guys at St Mary's, because back then the community was so small that all the weightlifters came together. So Woking guys would come and train with us. Yeah. So a shout out to the Chia brothers. They used to be from Woking, but they were the first good lifters I saw at Brunel that blew my mind. The snatching 120 and stuff, and they were the nicest people to me. So whenever I think about helping others in the community, these guys were so much better than me, but from the first day they spoke to me, they were much nicer than a lot of others that were maybe better. But they, Gung ended up coming on our Beaches and Barbells holidays with us and training our younger lifters, and now he lives in New York and stuff. But I heard his voice, because his voice is very unique. I heard his voice at a New York weightlifting competition in the background, because I can do his voice. His voice is... his brother's voice is "Come on, Gung," and then Gung's voice is hold it," like that, and they're really high pitched. And I can find loads of videos, but yeah, they got really good videos on YouTube from the old days. But yeah, they helped me a lot, and so they kind of inspired a lot of kind of the kind of advice you need from guys that aren't GB, that aren't kind of detached. They know what training around a full-time job is. They worked in London and stuff, and I think that's kind of where most of my knowledge is kind of taken from, those kind of people, because that's the culture we live in. And I think you turn up and you speak to Carlos. There's a story of one guy went up to Ilya Ilin when Ilya turned up to Bucks. Mm-hmm. Weirdest story on the planet, but he was studying English in London. He turns up at Bucks and everyone starts getting photos. This is before he banned, so no one feels bad. He signed a shirt as well. I've got an Ilya shirt from Hook Grip with his signature somewhere. Nice. Didn't know whether to burn it after he got suspended. However, my friend, one of our lifters, Simon here, he was Lithuanian, so he spoke some Russian as well. So he went up to him and said, "Look, I've just started weightlifting. What's your advice for a beginner to get better?" And Ilya's advice was, you need to squat 3 times a day.
Jeez.
Okay. It's the most inappropriate knowledge of the UK. No one trains like that. Even in your elite, you don't do 3 times a day. Yeah, so that was the advice. So those kind of advice, not useful. But I'm getting sidetracked on those stories. So we were talking about
They're good stories though, because it's my story was, how did you get here?
Yeah,
and this
that's
is
how I
it,
got
isn't
there,
it? It's people in the community that took you in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when we were in this building, I think it was we were surrounded by elite athletes, but with the weightlifting club, we were a hodgepodge of random people. Obviously Mike Pearman, 3-time Olympian, 3 times to the Olympics as a coach as well, gave up his time, never charged us a penny, was here twice a week, every week, and coached us every competition we ever could be in. And that's the kind of spirit of, for me, the spirit of weightlifting that it was. People like George Manners, these people gave everything to the sport. And yes, okay, I think if you look at the mistakes made, not necessarily by Pearman, but maybe the organisation of old, where we didn't quite create a sustainable foundation from the many times we've had good periods of funding. Like, where's our national centre? Where's our training base? I think when I started, I was at on the national talent squad, and we had loads of funding from London 2012 to kind of be up there in Leeds, where they rented a room for the Olympic team to train in. And we just couldn't have any sustainability from that. I mean, I think, like, yes, okay, someone bought kit, but if there's not a platform or a roof over your head to train full time, it's the minute those Olympics finished, like Jack Oliver, that was still up there, they could only train once a day for like an hour and a half or something, and so they would end up training in their garage or go into random gyms. And I think that's where we've continuously had this cycle of funding. So when I joined, I had a really good wave of a belief that this sport was sustainable and this sport was professional and this sport did have a future because of the London 2012 funding we'd had. And I think that's where, after we had 2014 as well, that was loads of kind of professionalism towards a home games. I know the kit kind of ended up being more distributed towards Scotland rugby stuff. I think they ended up buying a lot of the kit. But London 2012, we had loads of plates from London 2012. Keith Morgan distributed loads across the southeast, London southeast clubs. So we felt like there was this kind of, wow, this could be good. And I know our performances weren't great in 2012, but it's noticeable that the amount of medals we won at Gold Coast, that most of them are all athletes that were training fairly professionally through 2012 and 2014. And it's a delayed effect, but you look eight years on from that, you see what Gareth Evans performed, what state kind of Sarah Davies was in. Even the story that Emily Campbell, like Yusuf Zhu was our S&C coach on the talent squad at Leeds Met, and she was doing S&C with Yusuf Zhu, and Yusuf Zhu was kind of shadowing Tamas Fahir, who was our national coach from Hungary at the time over here. So you've got this weird kind of synchronicity of the right things at the right time, where she's ended up going to an S&C coach who's tied in really well with weightlifting, and her home is Nottingham way, where you've got Cyril and Dave at Atlas. So without Yusuf Zhu having enough funding to pay for an S&C coach to be at Leeds, like Emily might not have existed. I might have not even thought it was a real sport if 2012 hadn't happened. And I think it's noticeable in countries like Germany, where they haven't had a multi-sport event, that despite them having the talent, they haven't had the boom we've had, at least from a facility perspective or the kit in the national team. Like, a lot of the German stuff is old school. We went in their national centre and they've got what's that brand that they make, Schnell. They got machines from Schnell, and he said the machine's from like 1982 or something, and it still works perfectly, whereas all our stuff is generally pretty new. People look at our London 2012 and I think it's new stuff, because when I went to Palace we'd have plates from 1992 still go. I think they still have them, don't they?
Probably.
So I think that's the blessing our sports had, is the multi-sport events like Commonwealth Games and the Olympics has really helped us move forward in a time where, if you look at anything before 2012, like, there was almost nothing in our sport. There was very few clubs, and it was very small, and there were pros and cons to that, obviously, but I think that's where you couldn't guess we were going to go in this direction in 2008 or something like that.
You've got to, if you want elite athletes and create this elite sport, then you need to invest, right?
Yes.
And without I think that 2012 would be far cry from where we are now. For
for sure. Yeah. I know. I went and watched. Did you watch the? You get to watch weightlifting?
No, what did I get? Table tennis and something else really random. Can't remember what it was now.
I saw the 62s, I think.
Really?
And I saw it was one of the North Korean guys break the world record.
Nice.
And when we were walking around, Liu Xiaojun's coach was there, and like Mete Bine, which was a Turkish guy. I think he was European champion or something. So we were like awestruck because, I think the YouTube really helped us kind of connect back to the last few years in a sport that never really recorded. Frank Rothwell's videos on YouTube that recorded all of that. We'd watch every world championship, And when I started, I thought 77 snatching 170 was normal because Simon Martirosyan from Armenia did it, Taner Sagir from Turkey did it, and then you had obviously all the Chinese like Su Daijin as well. Su Daijin was rubbish because he only did 165. And there were the 2011 championships in Paris. That's kind of literally when I started. There was where 3 of them tried the world record clean and jerk. Seo Jae-hook, I think from Korea, tried it twice, and I was like, 211's basic. Like we can all get there. Like Clarence Kennedy was on YouTube at the time as well. So our squats were quite similar when I started, and then he kind of boomed up obviously. But I was like, okay, just squat more and I'll get better at weightlifting, which definitely didn't work. So, yeah, it was a really interesting start for sure. It's a nice time to come up, innocent time for sure.
Yeah.
And then make the transition from athlete to coach, or did you coach alongside being an athlete? Do you think?
Yeah, it wasn't a kind of day where it just happened.
Yeah.
So Pearman was coaching us, like more elite guys, I suppose, because around 2013, I won the under 23 championships, and Lewis Redette was getting good medals nationally at that time. So we were kind of getting a scholarship at Brunel, and then I think 2016 when I won the national seniors, it was near then I think that like Andy Rugg was kind of whether he would stay or not, because he had been here, finished being a student years before, and Lewis was close to graduation, so he was going to go scholarship. So it was kind of like the guys that Pearman had taken for the last 3, 4, 5 years were moving on. So when we got scholarships here, Brunel said you need to make a student club for you to get a recognised sport to get a scholarship. So then I ended up I had my coaching qualification 2012 anyway. I did it with Kazim Panjabi, and then I did my level 2 as soon as that would look like that was on the horizon. And Lewis didn't really have an interest in coaching, but I already did fitness instructing level 2 and stuff back then, and I'd done my parkour coaching level 2, I did ski instructing level 2 as well. So I'd done all these coaching qualifications anyway, and I thought it was an easy way to make a bit of cash while I'm training. I didn't want to be a coach. That's the whole funny part of my journey. I still don't even think, like, I didn't want to be a coach. I always just wanted weightlifting to be better in the UK, because like when I went to 2012 I thought, this is insane, we're so behind these countries, like what is it we can't do, why can't we be as good? And my coach was from a time where Britain was quite feared in the international scene. When you had Louis Martin and stuff, who's famous for saying why can't we beat the Russians, I've got 2 arms 2 legs and so has he. That kind of attitude to me is sad, that we had such a downfall. But then there's loads of reasons for it, of course, but I think it's like I love solving puzzles. That's kind of why I like parkour, because it was like trying to do a skill you can't do, or overcome something. And weightlifting was the same thing. Like, can we overcome lifting a few more kilos? But then as a nation, can we overcome this puzzle of not being able to fulfill what I think we can do? We've got the genetic variability in this country. Just there's so many people from different backgrounds that bring enormous amounts of strength, like Louis Martin coming from Jamaica, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And he was a bodybuilder before, but if you look at his technique and what he lifted, it just doesn't make sense. Like, that is pure strength, And then you have Precious McKenzie come through, and then people like Zoe Smith, like Andy Callard said, like he didn't believe you could lift that much weight until he met Zoe. How good you can be without enhancements and drugs, etc. So I think that's why I was kind of like, why are we not doing it? And I thought I could be really good and end up working out that way. But seeing the kids we got through now, when people like Jess turned up, and it was just like, how is she so strong? If a girl snatched half their body weight when I started, they were like, amazing. If you look at what Emily Muscat went to the Commonwealth Games lifting in 2010, I won't embarrass her, but we've got probably 12-year-olds doing those weights now. You can't, the standard that the girls are now, let alone the boys we've got coming through as well. I didn't believe, that was that easy to get them that good if they start at the right age and they do the right things. And I think that's what the shift in the mindset of maybe I was more optimistic at the beginning of what I thought was possible. I thought 170 snatch was normal, and then now I'm I went through a period where I think, okay, well, it's going to be hard. Look at what Jack Oliver did, where you're kind of doing 147 snatch, around 77 kilos, 180 something clean and jerk. I thought maybe 5 more kilos would be possible without drugs, but then you're like, well, actually, Jack's got hypermobility, he suffered loads of injuries, he's had no support. When he ripped his elbow, we didn't even have a doctor or medical support back then. There's loads of mistakes in the infrastructure that stops people moving forward, and I think they've done a massive job to try and cover that gap, and we can kind of see the fruits of our labour, especially with what the girls did in Tokyo performances and the World Championships around that time. You could see actually we can battle the world, but how long did those girls take to get there? And I think apart from Emily Campbell, no one else has done it that fast. It's definitely from a bird's eye view. I think unless you have been in the sport as at least 10 years, you can't see how difficult I suppose some journeys are for some people, or for most people in the sport.
Yeah. You've got a story about your journey in the sport that relates to Kristian now?
Yeah, very much so. So we'll probably touch on the whole talent transfer bit, but so I wouldn't say a talent transfer for me, but so I started off rugby and then moved into CrossFit, and then thought I stopped CrossFit because I kept on getting too many niggles and ended up in weightlifting. But one of my first competitions, I sort of got thrown in at the deep end thanks to my coach, was one of the British Masters, and it was at Derby or Coventry, I can't remember where. And I just 5 lifts, all good, and I came out for my 6th one, and then there was a voice who I know now after many years of listening to you as MC at some of the Brunel comps. Was you, and it was coming out, and you announced Aaron Holt coming out for his sixth lift. No pressure here, then.
Do that.
And I remember getting onto the platform, turning and looking at you, and going like, "Thanks." But luckily, I made it. So yeah.
Oh, perfect.
So thank you for that. But
you take full credit for that one.
Yeah,
he didn't make it. You put the pressure on.
Yeah, I think when I MC, I try and be more provocative, I suppose, because I think I'm more for the audience than I am for the people, because I think our sport needs that. But I definitely appreciate the weight on the shoulders, especially if someone's going to bomb out and stuff like that, or even hearing kind of comments on other athletes and stuff when you're on that stage. I think it's a skill to kind of be able to block it out. So I like throwing you in the deep end. Sorry about that. If you hadn't got it, it'd be a different conversation.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true. Well, I think it's true about when you're an MC though. Like, you are there for the audience. I much prefer it when the MC is a bit more engaging and, without being mean, takes a piss a little bit or has a laugh, because then the audience aren't just sitting there for 2 minutes waiting for somebody to come back out on a platform.
Exactly. But we had a funny MC moment where, I did London South East, and Ian Oswald was always the MC. God. And I thought, oh yeah, Ian. Hi Ian, lovely guy. Yeah. And then when I went to see Glasgow Games, I'm like, why is that voice so familiar? I was like, oh, it's Ian. It's like the London South East MC is doing the Glasgow Games, and I realised this sport is so small. Yeah. It's tiny every time. And it always surprises me. Yeah, but even when he came to World Champs or anything like that, and now Calvino obviously is doing a lot, and I just think, Calvino was doing doing all the MC stuff or technical official stuff at my first competitions. My first competition, it's on YouTube as well, on Bobby's channel actually. I caught the clean, like 122 or 118 or something on my neck, and I kind of gobbed as I coughed on after the clean, and then jerked it, and then you can see it on the video. And then Halil Zorba, who was like British record holder at the time, I think he cleaned like 170 something, like 77 back then. But in training he's done like 180 or something, at nearly 77 kilos. So anyway, he said like, Mike, where did you get this guy? He's strong. And then he hands me a tissue and he goes, but clean up your spit. I did.
I was going to ask about, because you've said several times when you've been, what can we do in between the gaps? Bring on some break dancers and stuff like that. How do you think that the competitions are run these days? I mean, because we've been very fortunate in the past 3 or 4 years. We've had mixing it with Strength in Depth and Fit Fest and stuff like that, and that seems to have been a different. We've had a lot more footfall in front of the platforms. Is that the way to go? How do we make it a bit more?
Yeah, it's. I mentioned a different format to Pearman, and he said, "Just wait till I'm dead before you do." So I do think that's a good metaphor for certain old school kind of stagnant mentality of what this sport is. I think if you look at the history of the sport, Broderick Chow, I still coach him. He's probably one of my first athletes I've ever coached from probably 2015, 2014 or something. I still program him every week. He did a whole study. He's the head of theatre, I think, at London Theatre School. Sorry, Broderick, if that's wrong. But on the history of strength sports and where we started, and I think it's important to realise our sport really did start on the stage, and it's always been a stage sport, whether it was fake weights, wearing your leopard print, definitely wasn't leopard print, it was a real dead animal, wasn't it? With the tash.
Yeah.
That is our sport. That's where we started. That's why it has the format it has. If you're looking at football as a pitch, ours has a stage, and we don't often get a stage anymore. We get obviously the platform, but I think Matthew Curtin's a big fan of a stage if you can get one. But I think that's like why Pearman said there never used to be a time limit between lifts, so you could take as long as you want.
Oh wow!
Psychotic. Format. It used to take 6 hours or whatever. You used to do clean and press, right?
Yeah.
It used to take all day to do one group, because you know what men are like when they get set up for a lift as well. They're the slowest.
Men are the slowest groups ever.
As well.
Yeah.
Heavy lifters, God. Yeah. So I think that's important to say, is like that our problem with our sport is the time between the lifts, not the actual lifts. I think that's something where, now when you've got DJs at the Worlds and we're playing music, that was the first step. When I started, we didn't have any music at all, so you would just lift, silence, right? It was awful, yeah. So, and sometimes the speakers would be so poor you couldn't even hear the ref. And there was always a joke my parents would say, there's a projector at Palace, you couldn't even read the projector, so there's no, you couldn't know what the weight was or anything. So I think when you look at what does the stage look like? I think we did it once at Fort. I don't know if any of you guys were there.
Yeah, we were there for Fort. Yeah,
we put like rope lights around and tried to get the lighting completely different.
Yeah, that's one where Jess Gordon-Brown tried to kill me.
Yes, that was dangerous. That one there.
Well,
trust her. But when we did the European Championships, Bulgaria, basically called us up and said, like, we saw what you did with Gymshark, and Gymshark. Not to flout, but that was it was my idea to do that one. So
that was really.
It was great. We loved that.
And someone came down the other day and she said, I said, how did you get into weightlifting? And she goes, my friend said come along to watch this thing at Gymshark, and I thought, oh my god, weightlifting's so cool. So I started. And I was like, oh my god, that's actually like direct influence story.
Yeah. Just very quickly for those that don't know. So it was a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
You basically had this great idea to take over the Gymshark Regent Street store, and then stick a platform in, get loads of amazing lifters and invites.
Yeah, it was incredible. Yeah. It was rammed, and I remember reffing and turning around, and people were literally cramming up against the windows because they couldn't get into the shop to watch people weight lift.
We only had 100 chairs or something.
It was amazing.
Yeah, it was round robin. So we could get through everything within a certain time limit. I think it took 2 hours to do the 2 groups. I think we had 6 men, 6 women, something like that. And then we had like prize money. So Noreen put forward, she worked for PhD at the time, so they put forward like a kind of protein sponsorship kind of thing. But But Gymshark been amazing, you know. Like Josh Carr's kind of the main guy, still left there, but a lot of the staff I think have moved on. But they've got a whole studio where you have free classes. So then we had a warm-up room there, and I think we were getting Eleiko to ship down platforms for us as well. And then the only issue was the flooring on the store. So the store didn't have the green light to not have drop pads, because the floor was only, it was rubberized floor underneath, but then no one trusted it. So, but the amazing, they obviously lift up all the clothes because it's designed to be an event space. And then you had like Joe and the Juice there, right, and everything like that. And we wanted to do it so you could eventually run like workshops in the day upstairs and educational stuff. And then long term, we wanted to do an international one, so you'd invite like people like obviously Carlos, etc., and then you'd have like more of an international cup kind of thing, which for me is what weightlifting from a televisable point of view, if that's the word, it should be. So I think the problem we've got, if you look at what we need from our sport, it's not the championships are not that interesting to watch for non-weightlifters, or they're not concise enough to put on a TV at night. So I think what we should be looking at is, and this is my big qualm with the Olympics, is yes, it's great we're in the Olympic Games. We should have never have had that threat, but you know, the IWF done a massive job to kind of turn that around. However, tennis is in the Olympic Games. I think golf is in the Olympic Games. Like all these sports, but they have the cup, they have the Ryder Cup, they have everything like that, and you know, the American Open, all that stuff. That's what brings. No one watches the Olympics tennis as the biggest thing of all year round, but they want to watch Djokovic play, you know, against Nadal, etc. So I think what we're looking at with our sport is you've got, and same with boxing. If you look at boxing, like why on earth? And no offense to boxing, but you watch boxing compared to MMA, and you're like, it's literally just someone smashing someone's face in for a long time. It's not like Rocky. It's not exciting like Rocky. It's just, you know, if you're really technical, I'm sure you enjoy it. But MMA's got so many different levels to it. Everyone gets a bit out of it. But boxing still has millions and millions of money into it, and they still have people going to watch it, buying tickets. And I think it just shows that it's not necessarily what you're watching that's important. It's about the spectacle of how it's presented. And that's where when we were working with the Bulgarian Federation for the European Championships, you know, when we sat there, and most of my ideas end up getting flopped because of time, which is usually the problem. There's a timeline to do it. Was about how do we create, like you were saying before, with regards to the MC being able to provide more commentary. So we were talking about, can we have better live feedback in the back room, and a commentator that's there to talk about the chess in the back room, right?
Yeah,
why
literally,
are they choosing that way?
Just describe what's happening at the marshals table, because I think that's fascinating.
So exciting.
Just have a camera on that, so you cut to that and see all the coaches fighting to get a pen.
Yeah, exactly. And I know our rules are a little bit confusing, but if someone's talking through it, you know. So we ended up, when the best competition I've ever watched was Carlos, you know, the 89s or whatever it was then, in Sofia. It was the best thing I've ever seen. So we were there the whole week. We brought out all the GB youth and junior kids, because I basically, when Matthew said, you know, would you be willing to help the federation do it? And I said, yeah, as long as the performance team can get a benefit out of it, right, for the kids. Because for me, being able to watch the best in the world, if I was, you know, 15, 16, 17, etc., that would be the best experience ever. You know, and the Bulgarians are very, no problem. It ended up being a lot of work, kind of to the last minute, but we managed to get a whole, you know, team of juniors and youth kids out there to actually train in the training hall, you know, with the best in the world there, get their little pictures with Lasher, etc. Well, they're big pictures with Lasher, aren't they? But that to me was that. So they had to leave early, but we ended up staying for the Carlos, and the whole week it was kind of dead audience, no one really watching it. And even Bulgaria, you know, you think they've got more fans than most. And when their Božidar Andreev, he was on, that was pretty busy. Yeah. And then my girlfriend at the time, she got like a spider bite or something, and she said, look, you know, I think we need to go to hospital. I said, look, we'll go after Carlos.
It's always after Carlos.
Looking back as red flag. Anyway, But yeah, so we strolled up like 5 minutes before thinking it's going to be fine, but I literally turned up to the stadium and it was heaving. The car park was full. We parked on the pavement. We went in and the hum, and everyone had the horns and the flags were out, and it's exactly like the early 2000 fans that you saw in like Athens and stuff when Pyrrhos was on. It was packed out. Wow. We had to climb up the mountain to the back to get seats. But the hum was the best experience I've ever had in my life. Nothing like the 2012 was pretty good. Paris I thought was mediocre because it just didn't have the depth that 2012. The XL Arena was huge, way bigger than what Paris put us in. But the amphitheatre side of the Sophia Arena, oh my God! And when they called Carlos's name, it was just insane. Like everyone was wild.
They did in Paris,
chills
didn't they?
everywhere. Yeah. So that's the kind of feeling you want when you watch weightlifting, and you can do that if you adjust the space for the audience you've got. And I think that's the missing piece that our sport has. So the reason I was talking about Carlos was when they called his name, because there's no one actually having a clue on the marshals table, the commentator goes, first attempt for Carlos. Carlos put in 160 open or something. So
he's not coming out on that.
He's not. So they kept calling him, and then the whole crowd goes crazy. But it's nice to have the vibe, but it wasn't Carlos, and we knew it wasn't going to be Carlos, but the audience doesn't know about the chess piece either. So then that kind of ruins the flow of the sport on that kind of hype. So you don't even know if he's actually coming up, and by the time he's coming out, I was like, is he coming? Is he not?
Yeah.
And I think that's a shambles, So that stuff needs to be adjusted and can be adjusted if you've got the right personnel in it. But the problem is you've got media companies that are helping do the AV stuff, that have staff to do quite a lot of technical stuff we don't, but you don't have very professional backstage commentators or anything. The best person you've got is your MC on the desk, and they're doing the best they can from a seated position. I don't blame them. So those are problems. But what I wanted to have was like you have these kind of crazy ideas we're throwing out there, but like in Manchester United, Old Trafford, they have a decline ramp as the players come out. That's a famous thing that the manager thought if they kind of jog out to the pitch, it makes them feel like they got energy, and it gives energy to the pitch. Yeah. At least what we were told on the Old Trafford tour. But I thought, what if you had behind the backing, directly behind the platform, you had a door that lifts up or opens so that the lifter comes directly out in front of the platform and shuts, and they can walk straight back. And the idea is that when the doors open, you can see the lifter directly behind that platform, ready to go out, rather than hidden in a corridor.
Yeah, a bit more dramatic
with no vibe.
Yeah.
And then you would raise the coach's position. So rather than have the coaches down to the stage, you'd have another stage for the coaches to stand there. So then their emotions, which I think add a lot to a lift, are then present directly in that, and respecting what both of them bring to it. Or having like a pulsating corridor that and they kind of did a bit of that in Armenia, which was fantastic what they did there. But yeah, those kind of weird things of like, they make a big difference. But my biggest request was that the audience are closer to the action. And I think what we've got still is a problem with, if you're going to go see weightlifting in person, not of BWL events, we get as close as we can kind of get, right? We're not that far off the referees in the front, and in international you have maybe you have the refs pretty close, and then you have maybe 5 to 8 meters back you have like a jury desk, and then 5 to 8 meters back you've got like media or VIP, and then 5 to 10 meters back you've got audience or a fence for the audience. So when we went to say Moldova for Europeans, there's not many fans in Moldova. It's a small country. They got a great weightlifting team for sure. The population is probably one of the best in the world there. But I think if there's only going to be 30 people in the audience, then you need to bring the audience to the platform, because that helps that lift to have that atmosphere. Yeah. And that's what my annoyance is, that you can create in a very small space. Why are we not a circular sport?
Yeah.
And no one really answers that question. I don't think it's in the rules at all. Why can't we have tiered seating all the way around a platform, and the audience sits above you? So there's health and safety. The bar can't go that high. But why is the audience so far away? And if you look at, we were talking about b-boying a bit before we came on, is like, in breaking you have, despite them getting ransacked at the Olympics, but if you actually look at, say, Red Bull events, I've been to like Red Bull BC1, the kind of qualifiers in London, there's maybe only about 100 of us there. but we're right around the action,
Yeah.
and the pit's there, so they lift on top of a stage that's raised, and we look up. And I'm not sort of thinking safer in weightlifting. You look down, don't want to get killed by the bar, Jess. Not you, Jess, the other Jess. But I think that's the question we all have to ask ourselves: is if we know the audience is only 30 people, when you watch MMA, when you watch boxing, the atmosphere is electric, even though there might not be that many people there.
Yeah, I think you're right with this idea of the commentary, because I always think that we could do a much better job if we talked more about like rivalries, or even just the history or the background of the lifters. Like the fact that Carlos stayed in his own accommodation at the Olympics. There's so much you could do with that time or with that space. And if you were to have a camera on the marshal's desk and have somebody who knew what they were talking about to just say, yeah, look, there's a real lift off going off here, and somebody's just stolen a clock. Like when somebody steals somebody's clock, as a TO, I'm like, oh, you dick.
Yeah, it's rough. Yeah, it's rough.
But it's also great because that's what competition is, and that's the coach being clever. Yeah. And the audience don't see any of that. They just see a couple of changes on a board and wonder what's going on.
Yeah,
so
get fed up of waiting.
Yeah, I think there's definitely something about.
I feel like the scoreboard's more helpful for the coaches, right? But I think if there was a board that was more displaying on the chess game, what changes are happening. You had a board that said what changes have actually happened, rather than I think that's a huge thing to kind of allow. Then someone could go, okay, he's gone up, and then you're actually saying that rather than waiting for the person to be fake called. You know,
it's a really mad example, but it's from the age groups from years ago, about 3 years ago maybe, and Benedict did this ridiculous thing that I'll never get over, where he had 2 changes left to make, and his athlete was competing against another one, and they were 1 kilo in each other essentially, and he put him up from something like 120 to 160, and the other coach just looked at him and was like, oh, fuck that, mate, and just put the weight down that his athlete was going to go out at. The athlete went out, and Benedict quickly changed it back down to match, and it was 162. It wouldn't go through because his athlete should have gone out first, so we had to do 1, 2, 3 or whatever, but his athlete went out and made the lift, and all he'd done is psych out the other coach by whacking on 40 kilos. Never had any intention of sending the kid out to do the 40 kilos, but you could see the coach go, I can't compete with that. So and that to me has stuck with me for ages as a something that I don't think I'll ever see again, but would have been so interesting for the spectators, because they would have seen it go up to 160 and then seeing it drop back down and not really understood
it's a story.
Why, or the fact that those two were battling it out for first place. So there's definitely something more to it. But when you've gone on all of these things with BWL or with athletes, particularly internationally, I'm always really curious. I asked Julie when we had Julie on, does it ever get to a point where you're opposite Carlos, say, in a training hall, and it's not boring, but it's just life? You're not a little bit starstruck to be watching Lasher muscle clean? Because you've done it so much.
Yeah, no. I think the best thing about our sport is that the best athletes out there generally are really nice and humble, because the sport requires you to have some humility towards what you're doing. And we have a lot of joke with the athletes in here that kind of fake their, try and look cool all the time and think they're really fast, or that they just jog a few times on the track. No offense to sprinters. We had a lot of the Jamaican guys here, and they are really nice. But my point with the top ones are actually as humble as the top weightlifters, I think, because they've worked their way there. They're not pretending or faking it till they make it. And there's ones with the attitude sometimes, usually that kind of subpar. Yeah, think they deserve it kind of thing, but they've never had their break. And weightlifting, like, no matter what level you're at, if you're at world champs, you've worked your bum off to get there. And I think that's where our sport, that's why I love our sport, because I think in a world where everything's about, faking it, and influencers that trying to look strong and they're pathetic, and everyone's cutting corners to try and get over wherever they can in life. At weightlifting, you can't really cut corners.
You can't be given it.
Without obviously getting banned or something. So no cheat codes, exactly. And it's the numbers on that lift. And I think that's where almost everyone you meet at all levels seem to be the nicest person you've ever met. And it might not be the case behind closed doors, you never know. But publicly, I've never met anyone internationally that I'm a big fan of that hasn't been the nicest person I've met. And I think that's more of the surprise than anything in terms of starstruck. feelings. But the first international I did was the World Juniors in Greece, and that Pyrrhos Dimas was running that, so he was there every day talking, helping us out, and obviously to meet Pyrrhos was a big thing. But he's the most casual guy you've ever met, and he's always joking and stuff, and I think immediately it was super cool to kind of break the ice, meeting someone like that who's just obviously busy running an event. And then you start realising these guys are pretty human. This sport's pretty small. If our best ever, one of the best ever, 3 goals at the Olympic Games, and a bronze is just running an international championships. You haven't got someone else doing it for you. You think, wow,
he's doing the work.
This is small. And then, like, my favourite story from that trip, I've never really told this one. I only told it to a few people, and I don't think it's that significant, but I love it. Is that I think when we first arrived, Dimas wasn't there. It was really late, and we had COVID, so we had to get shuffled off to COVID testing and everything like that. And so we just went to bed, woke up in the morning. It's a fantastic hotel in Crete. It was all inclusive for everyone, just non-alcoholic drinks. Alcoholic drinks not allowed, but the guests there, that this was a fantastic holiday for people, because they had 3, 4, 5 pools, 4 or 5 different restaurants, and the senior team at the time, because obviously when we're dealing with the youth and juniors at the time, they were like, oh, I'm very jealous, because you end up, sometimes you get the short straw on internationals. So I come downstairs a bit deranged, and then they've got like a Turkish, it's Greek coffee, sorry. Greek coffee maker, so it's because we're in Greece, and it's the hot sand with the bricky, they call it bricky. So you put if anyone doesn't know what Turkish coffee is, it's more fine ground coffee. You mix it, and then you just wait for it to bubble. But the idea of the sand, it doesn't burn the coffee, so then it's slow. So you have to stand there like an idiot for a fair old time. And I was like, oh, that'd be cool, I'll have one of those. Because every time, loads of our beaches at Barbados holidays are always in Cyprus or Crete. So if I have a Greek coffee, I feel like I'm on holiday. So I like having it. Anyway, we actually are on holiday there, and we're working. But anyway, I walked past and I'm like, is that Dimas? And I'm like looking at this guy, and I'm like, he looks like Dimas, but he looks not like Dimas all at the same time. And I'm standing there, and I'm looking at him, and then he starts looking at me, and I'm like holding on for too long. I'm like, is it Dimas? Is it Dimas? Is it Dimas? And then I go, no, it's not Dimas. It's not Dimas. So I walk away, and then it's his bloody brother, Odysseus Dimas. Yeah. And they're like slight doppelgangers. If you're a bit drunk, you'd probably think they're the same person. But I find it so funny that he's sitting there making his Greek coffee, and that you can see the blood of Dimas in him. So that was a cool start to the kind of thing. But the same day, I think I met Kaki Kakashvili when he was head of the Georgian, and I went and shook his hand. His hands are like bear clubs, and I was like, wow, like obviously to meet those, because they're legit, champions. A junior, someone winning a world junior at that time, you don't know how much prestige they're going to have going forward. But the Italians had brought their whole senior team with them as well to train with the juniors, so that was usually awestruck seeing them. And that's the first time I spoke to the Italians, because I went and visited the Italian centre. But I found it difficult because and this is, I think, a problem we have across whole British weightlifting and probably in other countries, is humility to learn off other people and learn off other nations seems quite alien. Because every sport I've done has always taken a conversation to learn stuff. And I've always wanted to find out what the best are doing. So when I started lifting, I would just, speak to Jack Oliver. I was like, he's the best male in the UK. How do you train? And I would speak to him all the time. And his advice was, I said, what do you eat? What's your diet like? And he said, well, after every training session, I go get a McFlurry from McDonald's.
Peak nutrition.
And I hadn't eaten McDonald's back then because I was like super healthy guy for maybe like 20 years or so, I don't know, 15 years at that point. So the only thing I ate was McFlurries from McDonald's because of Jack Oliver, And there's a story with Europa that someone also did the same thing at a gym, where someone said, how do you squat so much? And he said, I eat Snickers every day. So then the next time he saw that guy, the guy was eating Snickers every time he trained, right? Yeah. So when I go up to these people, I want to ask those similar questions, like, what is it? How do you guys train? So I remember I was like, I knew really crap Italian, so I like rehearsed what I was going to say, and I went up to the whole team. So there's 20 Italians sitting down, all the coaches, and I said, scusi. And then also they speak English, and then one of them was quite good at English. So then I said, look, you guys have been doing really well in Europe and producing a good team. Is there any chance I can maybe ask some questions about your training? And it would be great if, would I be able to visit your training centre as well? And they were like, yeah, of course. So I took their secretary's number, and then linked up, and then I went out there a few times, and you just give them a call and they get you in the Olympic Centre. So it was super cool to be able to spend that whole time with them, see it and speak to them. And Pietro was the best guy helping me, and Matteo, those two, obviously shout out to Corbu as well for helping, but he's the main coach, very busy. But Pietro and Matteo had the best English, because my Italian's not doing anything. But the best part about visiting that centre was it's a real kind of dodgy train station to get you there out of Rome. And when I was leaving, this car pulls up and this woman's like, says something in Italian. I was like, English? And she goes, you want sex?
No, weightlifting.
Barbell.
And I was very English. I said, no, thank you. No, thank you.
Not today. That is the best way to get CPD as a coach, though, is just to learn off other people. I mean, not all of us are going to get the opportunity to go over to Italy, but we've got so many coaches in the UK that we could be sharing amongst each other and sort of shadowing one. Before we started this, you were talking about people coming and shadowing you here, and I think that's a really good ethos to have as a coach, is that you're not too big to learn off somebody else. Yeah. You're not too. It's not too much to ask somebody else. Actually, how do you do this? How would you program for that, or how would you approach this?
It's the silos for me. So, and this is my biggest advice to all coaches, is that probably having a slightly isolated system with one coach might make you a better athlete, because you're not flipping from pillar to post on different ideas, assuming your coach is good. But I think the biggest mistake any coach can make is only learning from one coach. And you see it again and again in clubs where they just have one person they learn from, and then they echo exactly how that coach coaches, and I think that's insane, because it's
same cues when you can hear it in competition. Can't you?
I mean, my guys are bad for it, they copy my voice as well, but it is exactly that. And I think my coach said, so Pearman said, go wherever you need to go to get better. That's what he said, and I think that rings true with everybody, even my guys. Like, I hopefully I'm the best guy they can be for them, but I'm not going to be the best guy for everybody. And it's the same with coaching. So the trick I did, that unintentional, was when I was studying law, I sitting in the class like not long before I finished, and I thought, wouldn't it be amazing if you could go and train with a week with the best lifters in the country and the world and learn from them, and then in return that lifter could get like a training holiday as well, training camp in return. So that's why we started Beaches and Barbells back then. And so because I did that, I shadowed so many athletes and coaches around the UK. Like, we were doing UK workshops as well, so I got to learn of everybody. Right, and no one else has been able to do that in the UK. And because of Pearman as well, like the older guys, always generally nice to me, So Keith Morgan, the first time, said well done the other day as well. So that's taken 15 years of work to
means
get
a lot
there.
though.
Yeah, it means a lot. Yeah,
means a lot.
Probably means more than anything. But but I think that's where they know that I love the sport, and they know I'm learning from those guys. So then they're okay. All right, we'll give this guy a shot. And I posted the other day on at least on my close friends, I found a handwritten letter from John Lear, who was our national coach for God knows how long, 40 years or something, maybe longer. Where he's basically written a handwritten A4 page of explaining the process as to how he's written Ben Watson's return to training program and everything like that, and then it's all photocopied stuff of all this stuff. And I've got quite a few handwritten programs. Even Mike would never write me a program. He would just write, these are the exercises I want you to do, here's a general outline, write it yourself, kind of thing. So I was always kind of pushed to kind of learn the methodology, and by the same, I would also, when we were in Cyprus, we'd learn off their federation and stuff, and they're more influenced by the Greek side. We spent loads of time with Mem way back, and no one really, to be frank, no one actually cared how good Mem was back in the day. Yeah. They knew he was good. No one spoke to him, at least from my when I see him in the gym, at first competition, he turned up, he had a massive total down on the entry total, 260, and I said to him, hi, I'm Kristian, nice to meet you. I said, got quite big weights, looks like you're going to follow yourself on every lift. And he just said, like real straight lace, looked at me in the face and he goes, I don't care.
I love that so much.
And, you know, but I remember training next to him in Palace and I was like, how the hell is his bar path so straight? I've never seen that in my life, you know.
He's such a good coach, isn't he? But
like no one ever would really go up and say, you know, what's your methodology? How do you do your technique? And it's like no one actually really cares. At least that's what I see in weightlifting, is that people are so obsessed with either their own journey or, you know, the male mindset's generally like, don't tell me what to do, I'm going to do my own thing. And a lot of our coaches are male, and I think that doesn't help the kind of process. But like, we have to be honest and say, like, most coaches in the UK do not have the answers. And my coach even said, you know, as long as you know a bit more than your athletes, you know, you do your best with what you got in front. We have to do our best, but we also have to not sell them a lie.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was telling a story yesterday about, we had a guy come here and he'd done a year of one-to-ones with a CrossFit coach, who said he could teach him weightlifting, right? And he didn't go anywhere. Obviously, he was terrible, but not all CrossFit coaches are terrible. But this guy was. But I think you've got to know what you know your limit. And we all start out doing our best. I think that if you're doing your best, that's the best intention. But who else are you learning from? How are you improving what your practice and your process? I never think I had the answer, right? I never did. And even when, you know, Bella was probably the main reason I got selected for regional youth coach back in development coach here. That's how I kind of started on the more coaching, because I was a tutor from 2015 as well for the courses. But, you know, I would bring Bella over to MEMS and we would kind of talk through how can we help her. And I've got videos from way back where Mem was trying to show us how to hit a position and stuff like that. And I think that's where, like, I had the humility. I don't want to mess Bella's career up, so I bring her there. And I just think, like, where I don't see many coaches. I see really humble coaches maybe message me and say, well, how can you help this person? But, you know, back in the day, you'd have, like, Woking's coach, Brian Hamill, rest in peace. He used to bring his lifters to Mike and say, could you help me with this? And that's both coaches having, you know, 30, 40 years coaching experience, maybe longer. Definitely longer for Pearman. Where is that now? And I think we have to really ask ourselves, like, you know, if we accept that clubs are now financially very difficult to run in the way it's just weightlifting, we have to have a reflection on what does the weightlifting part of it look like, and is it just a business that, you know, people come in and lift weights, or is it a club that produces weightlifters?
Yeah,
I think that's the biggest question, and I don't have the answers, but I would say we've got more people doing weightlifting in the UK than ever before, but we don't really have that many more weightlifters compared to, let's say the people trying it.
Yeah,
the percentage is very low, really. Even if you look at our competitions for the last 10 years, it's the standards improved to a degree, yes, and we've got the most amount of high level women I've ever seen in my life. But we haven't got loads of men compared to back then that are performing to national level standards. I don't think it's actually probably any more significant, right? But you go, like you say, you go to pure gyms, there are more people trying it.
Yeah.
But they're not feeding in.
Yeah. I think it's interesting what you say, because a lot of coaches will say to their athletes, leave your ego at the door. And it might be a case of the coaches needing to leave. Because when you think about coaches asking other coaches for help, if I think about Mem, he would help anyone. Yeah. And he would gladly welcome any coach or any athlete into his gym with 2 minutes notice and help you. There's never been a time that I would think that he would say no to me if I asked him for help.
Exactly.
And any coach that I can think of that I respect or that I think I could learn something from, if I asked them for help, they'd give it to me. So there is maybe something there about learning from what we ask of the athletes and how we apply it to coaching.
I don't think it's sport specific. You know, a great story I've got is me and Georgina Williams, Masters athlete. She was doing that online World Masters. You know, when Sean Brown was doing all the computer systems, and we needed a quiet gym, so we called up CrossFit Heathrow because we were training outside of there when Brunel was shut for COVID. and we did a competition in the morning because we thought 10 till 12, no one's in here, it's all shut, I've got the keys, cool. And then suddenly, while we're lifting, Sam Briggs turns up through the door. Sam Briggs, like multiple CrossFit world champion. I'm not a CrossFit like madman, but I'd love to know how the hell she's so good, right?
Yeah.
So we trained together a little bit. We went on the bikes together. I'm having a chat, asking about her training. And there's another CrossFit coach there, and he ignores her the whole time. Not once does he come up to her and say, oh, big fan, or like, you got any tips, or nothing. He does his coaching, pretends she's not there, and then leaves.
This wealth of knowledge, ready.
Madness to me.
Yeah.
And he's the same guy. The only question he asked me about weightlifting from the whole year we were there, he said, before a lifter lifts, do you know when they move their feet side to side before they grab the bar? What's that for?
Oh God. Of all the questions.
And I was like, how about let's talk about straight back, shall we? And but I'm saying that's a good example of is there just ego in learning? Are you afraid to go and learn from someone? I bloody love stealing everyone's knowledge. That's how we create our own system. Is we take what's good from someone else, we make it better, we put it into our system. And I've always done that from the start. Loads of stuff from Callard, Keith Morgan, Pearman, Kazim, and obviously Mem. And then when we went abroad, I took as much as I can from there. So, I didn't get to spend much time with Cyril or anyone like that, but because of geography. But like Dave, obviously been a lot with him on world championships, etc. But even the same thing. I've had great time working with Amy on the youth stuff. Amy, Stuart Cruikshank, Natalie, Prishepa, Andy Griffiths, Luke Stotford, Sally. These guys all helped massively on our regional program, and we got to share a lot. And my biggest pet peeve is in person shadowing's the best and there ever has been to learn. And you can flog as many courses as you want, but I can't see people applying the knowledge on a textbook into, and it's clearly not happening because of the way that we're having either drop-offs or stagnations in performance. I really don't think, and this is probably my biggest pet peeve in our sport as to why we have such poor retention, is that a coach sells you a dream, or a club sells you a dream, or a business or a gym sells you a dream of what weightlifting can be, and then they don't put the checks and balances in place that stop you from either injuring yourself or stagnating, or losing sight or interest in the sport for whatever reason. And it's not always the gym's fault, but it naturally happens because it could be because of life, family, whatever. But at that point where you quit the sport, I think the worst thing that keeps me awake at night is the idea that someone's quit the sport because I've failed in my job at helping them enough to find a sustainable way to train weightlifting. I don't care if you snatch, and this is another annoyance, is our sport isn't about lifting 200 kilos. It's not, but it is about challenging yourself to do a weight you couldn't do before, and overcoming a technical hurdle or overcoming a strength block and trying to move forward. That to me embodies what our sport actually is, because that is 99.9% of what we do. The 6 lifts on the platform are the smallest part. But I think when we look at these coaches, it's at that point where you quit, that person has to leave the sport with 2 reflections, and that's either the coach let me down, the club wasn't good enough, which I give you a million stories that's been the case for people, but I know most people, and that's why I think we have bad retention. This is my opinion, is most people at that point, because of either the coach's ego or because certain people did well, they have to then leave the sport thinking, I'm just crap, I'm not good enough. And that's the worst feeling I think this sport could ever have, is that someone thinks I'm naturally not able to do this sport. I think anyone can do something, right? Anyone can get some sort of snatch or some sort of clean and jerk, or really I think a lot of people should be focusing on the squat and deadlift as a foundation to start the sport. A few push-ups maybe would be a good start, but I think it hurts me inside when I think, imagine, I've seen it loads of times, even lifters that make national level that could have been international, but because of poor practice or positions not being right for their mechanics, that they've missed 10, 15 kilos off their total that could have made them international and have to quit. And we know how much this sport takes mentally, physically to do. That's why I love it, is because it is so harsh but rewarding by the end of the smallest things, right? 1 kilo makes you the happiest person in the world. And I think that's where when we talk about humility and learning, is can we reflect enough as coaches to say, you know, I said it to someone the other day actually, you know, I said, look, your start position's good enough for the weights you're doing, it's great. But like, if you want to clean 100, my honest opinion is, you know, your hips need to be like here. You need to get more hamstring, or you need to get, you know, a bit more posterior chain strength to a net, because that weight's going to pull you forward. You're going to have to be able to cater it. And I think that's the conversation I actually have with a lot of people, who say like, great, cool, you want to do weightlifting. How much do you actually want to lift? Because if you want to lift this amount, then we're going to have to do it like this.
Yeah. Here's the equation.
Yeah. And I don't think people approach it enough like that, because I see them like, you know, if you're power snatching day one like I did because my shoulder or whatever, it ruined my snatch for my whole career. I'm a terrible snatcher. There's a joke at the early Brunel guys. They used to say, I was on the roof. They used to say like, we do way more snatch because Kristian's crap at snatch, and that's the way I'd program, would be make sure no one else is rubbish at snatch.
Yeah. 3 days of snatching, 2
and no squats because I'm really good at squat. Yeah.
But you're right though. I mean, it's that misnomer that we see it because we're not in a weightlifting gym or a CrossFit box. It's people see us and we can't do that. Why can't you do that? I could never get my hands or my shoulders in that position, the overhead position with the bar. So just try it. You can just 100%. Mobility is not
I always because they always stop us in the pure gym, don't they? And I always say, look, I had to stop with dowel. Like I was super strong because I was SNC obsessed, and then couldn't overhead squat the 15 kilo bar, and the humble that was for me to not be able to do that was But
the way you start, right? Like you're saying, that kind of ground up starting. That's the job all of our coaches need, and that is probably the reflection. I think we were talking about what does clubs and stuff, not to jump topics, but I think we need to really reflect on what does an entry level to weightlifting look like. There's no standardization, is there really? And I think if you can't do a push up, I don't think weightlifting's with the 15 kilo bar is proportionate amount of force through your shoulders in an overhead squat. That's horrendously demanding. If you can't push up your own body weight, fair enough if you're super heavyweight, I get it, but we've got to start somewhere. It's like, can you do a push up? Cool, okay. Can you do 5? Cool, okay. We're probably good with the bar. But we're not. We get people, as I'm sure you guys that ask about it for you guys is, can I want to learn weightlifting because I want to get stronger, and it's like, probably powerlifting might be a bit of an easier start. Weightlifting is advanced. This Olympic lifting is advanced, and I think that's where we could say, cool, okay, well, we're going to do 6 weeks of this foundation work, and then we'll start smashing the snatch, if you can't. And I think we've all been, when we run a beginner's course, we've got someone who's never been in a gym before, and then we got other people that have done CrossFit for a while, so it is a challenge. But I think if we're going to be able to serve the population to kind of entry into strength training, British weightlifting with 2 words, all coaches, we're going to have to be able to do, can you teach someone how to squat properly and do some bodyweight exercise as well? And we are all, we will love just chuck the, get the bar going. And
also manage that feeling, because I think for me, when I would train with you, and I could do pull-ups with the blue plate, and I was super fucking strong, but literally was using the training bar to do the overhead squats, and wanted to walk away so many times, but would not be defeated by a 10 kilo bar when I could do a pull-up with the blue plate. Like, no. And it was more that frustration of like, I'm just
but you're one of those crazy strong
going to defeat me.
I think it's better to be very weak when you start weightlifting in the upper body at least.
Oh, 100%, because it screwed me over. It screwed me over something chronic. Like I'm an average.
What I say, but
I'm an average weightlifter. But I loved getting to the point of being an average weightlifter because I was so crap to begin with. But it does mean that when people approach me in a pure gym and say I can't get into that position, I can say, yep, I couldn't either. But
that's the addiction that we need to capture, is that challenge. People, and it's that personnel. And I said this before, is if we are if we're really reflecting on who actually ends up staying and doing weightlifting, every time it's crazy people that like hard sports, and it's people that like overcoming challenges, and it's people that have found something that this gives them a feeling of strength and a feeling of progression, or a feeling of being able to battle something they couldn't do before. That's the people that stick and do our sport. No one I know does this sport that hates hard work, and if they do, they're only here for a few months. So you can't base our recruitment model against every Joe Bloggs on the street. We have to accept that we're not going to be a sport for all. We're a sport that allows anybody from any background to do it. You look at our Brunel student club photos over the years, it's the wackiest back, because we've got all these, the hockey players all look the same, the rugby players all look the same, the swimmers all look the same, the athletics all look the same. You look at weightlifting, you're like, what is this ragtag bunch? You got someone who's 4'9", and then someone who's 6'4", bless him, Fontaine, who I'm amazed, a basketball player, phenomenal lifter. But when he first came, he was falling over with his broomstick. That's the diversity of our sport. But every single person there has a weird psychological obsession with hard sports, and I think that's what we need to capture. Not every man and his dog doing a sport like the way football can recruit. We just can't battle that kind of accessibility where you have fun when you play football. Weightlifting is like a kind of torturous, fun game where we love the challenge.
It's one of my favourite sayings, isn't it? For every level there's another devil, and it's just you said it. 1 kilo is an amazing achievement, and then it just fucks you over.
Sometimes I put clips on and count them.
Yeah, when I finally got the mobility to drop under a snatch, and then I dropped and didn't have the mobility to tense quick enough.
Oh, really?
So I went from power snatching 63 to not being able to snatch more than 35, so I was just collapsing under it. It's like, you've learnt to drop, but now you can't snatch. So there's always something. But yeah, I think that's true. I suppose that probably takes us on to topic 3. So many topics.
Yes. Which is,
I think Kristian's already probably touched on it, and it's growth, and it's something we wanted to talk to you about in terms of growth and retention. But Aaron had a particular area that he was interested in.
Yeah, so I think from we're fairly fortunate in that we've been asked to go up to Nottingham a few times recently.
Yeah, that's cool.
And seeing the development teams, or was it Talent ID?
Yeah, it was Performance Pathway, England Testing Day, and
and the one thing noticeable the most recent visit was that there was a lot of boys coming through, and that was great to see. We're obviously blessed with quite a lot of girls that are coming through the ranks and now pushing into the seniors. But there's obviously that real lack of boys coming through. Also we're here at Brunel. You're fortunate with it's quite a sporty uni, so you get to sort of try and bring in talent from different sports. But how do we do that at national level? For the clubs like Mem, I know when we spoke to him and Silva were trying to get into schools to try and get the young boys coming and girls to sort of start lifting. But
how do we keep them?
Yeah.
We've had a couple of years where we've had boys get to the Junior Europeans and then they've gone. So how do we get? For me, it is a retention question. It's right now we've just seen some incredible lifting from the likes of Isaac Bluff, Samu. They're insane.
Yeah, the Jasper Hiltons as well. He's obviously performing.
Yeah, he's kind of like
well.
Sitting slightly on his own age range.
Yeah,
he kind of. When you haven't got any peers, and I think probably Isaac Bluff will also end up being that kind of one guy who stays through. Hopefully there's a few more, but yeah, if you look at the numbers, they're obviously disappointing in terms of depth. Depth is what we're after. So the model after, say, like our strategy ever since kind of 2012 was this kind of triangle approach. I think Poland employ a triangle approach as well. So if you look at their senior team, they only have about 5 athletes, which is bonkers because they have down below junior, they've probably got, making numbers off the top of my head here, statistically all stats are made up. They might have say 50 at junior level funded or something, but then only 5 at senior. So
matches what Shemek told us, isn't it?
Yeah, so I think and same like Romania, they say they've only got 55 kids doing the sport properly in weightlifting. So if I'm looking at do we need loads of kids doing the sport? I think that's why I'm trying to always angle that towards, we need people that want to do the sport, and we need the clubs with the open doors. So I call it like an open door policy is kind of my biggest pet peeve that we don't have. So if you are a good kid that is doing rugby and you want to go try weightlifting, statistically you're not going to be near a weightlifting club that's got a door open for you with the right coach to take you there, right? Bella didn't come to our club first. She got denied. The guy said, I won't teach kids at the weightlifting club. Or she went and it was thrown into an adult class or something, and I don't really have the attention. So, I happened to be available because I just copied Pearman and gave up my evenings or whatever. But back then I was training at the same kind of time, so we'd train with him, and that's copied off Callard's approach as well. So Callard's also the other best person who managed to get kids in, pre kind of my generation. He would train with them. He said the best way to show kids how to lift is to train with them.
It's the lift.
You show them the rest times, the work hard, push themselves, challenge, and everything like that, rather than sit on your bum and kind of do that. So sometimes I'll jump in the squats here, and always Elijah or something, I always savage him somehow on squats. But Tom Wright, terrible squatter as well, so I can do him in sometimes. But yeah, I think that's where you got a bit of a challenge, is the open door side. Like that's number one. So we've got more, like I said, we've got more weightlifting. We've got more people qualified as weightlifting coaches in the UK, but we haven't got many weightlifting coaches that actually are, when they say I identify as a weightlifting coach. It's different. You're a PT that has a weightlifting qualification. I think we've got to differentiate between that, because they don't have the open door, right? Most of them can't say, like here are youth sessions. I don't know what the membership is off the top of my head, is something like 30 quid a month or something for 2 sessions a week. There's not many places that can afford to do that. We're blessed with a university that they still have to pay their £5 to get in, but that's a different conversation in terms of the amount it is versus a CrossFit gym that was charging, say, some of my kids when they were at CrossFit gyms are being charged 150, 200 quid a month as a kid.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
They don't even have BWL qualifications a lot of the times in CrossFit gyms. Yeah.
So I think that's the question we have to first ask ourselves: is if someone wants to do the sport, how do they find the sport? And I really don't want to delve into his legal issues at all at the moment, but like Nino's approach to the sport was he grew up on a farm in Sicily, and they were doing some outreach event. So who was the old president of Italy that retired, the federation in Italy? He did quite a lot. It wasn't Antonio or something, was it? But anyway, he was in like Palermo or something doing some sort of outreach program, and apparently Nino came up to him and said like hi, I want to win an Olympic medal. And he said, have you done weightlifting before? He said no. And he's like, okay, well, go do weightlifting and then come back to me. And then obviously he's won an Olympic medal now. Definitely controversial that second one. Let's not talk about the other stuff, but I think that's a really interesting point of like, that's a system that was ready to take someone that wants to do it of the standard. He bench pressed 130 at 12 years old or 13 years old or something, right? That's a talent ID, straight up talent ID. Chris Murray, same thing, benching massive weights as in his rugby, talent ID. What the infrastructure wasn't ready for Chris Murray. He's a lost generation in his youth, really. Dan Wagner did quite a good job with the budget they had, but the funding all the way through. So can we have someone walk up and say, I tried squatting and I back squat 150 and I'm only 12. Who's going to take them? Who's going to be there to coach them? I think we don't have that great at the moment. That's kind of what it's always been amazing about, say, someone like Atlas and Callard, and now like Amy, for example, is that they are a weightlifting club that has a weightlifting gym that is affordable as far as I know, that the coach is going to be there. Cyril's retired, he can sit in the gym at any time after school, and same with me. We've now I don't work full time for British Weightlifting, so I can just come here. We got a youth class at 4:30, and Jess will do the school classes as well, so we kind of share the load. But if I had a full-time job, it's not possible.
Yeah.
You'd lose all your evening. If you've got a family, you're in trouble, So I think that's the challenge we've got, is how do we professionalise coaching? That's not just PTing on the side, I suppose. But the biggest challenge is what you guys were saying, is like then retention after that. And I think it's getting there now. I think there's huge progress that BWR have made with regards to the men's squad. So like we noticed that because they had so little men. Even if we split the squads 50-50, it wasn't a fair attention to the men, or it wasn't the right, you know, you got some girls going to Europeans and the boys are just, you know, like Isaac Bluff is the next kid coming through.
Yeah.
But if we had chucked him on a youth squad 2 years ago, it wouldn't have made sense, because their standard on the international level that they have to hit, the weights they have to hit, are proportionally quite high. Versus, say, a girl you could probably get to international level within a year and a half, 2 years if you're talented, you know. So especially if you've done sport like gymnastics before. There's multitude of reasons why that's the case. I don't think it's easier for women in the long term at all. I think it's actually more competitive now.
Yeah.
But, you know, that you look at the male side and you think, well, I think you look at genetically as well. You look at like Armenian men quite early on, they're way bigger than we are, whether they hit puberty earlier or whatever, but their recruitment, they seem to have massive men, whereas, you know, we tend to mature a little bit later, and genetically obviously men hit puberty later than women anyway. So I think those are the challenges we've got, is you can't have a 15-year-old boy comparable to a 15-year-old girl, because the boy's going to take longer to mature. So what do those years look like? What does high school look like for training? What does university look like for training? And now we can kind of say, well, you know, you could come to Brunel, study here, and we'll, you know, Steve kind of came here for university for that reason. Yeah. And matured through, now is going to Europeans. But you look at, say, the Nottingham programme now, it's possible like someone like Jasper now has kind of, when he first came to Nottingham, he was a little bit off the mark on the international side, and then he's done massive progress in that time and looking good for like maybe Commonwealth Games, who knows. But that's the kind of journey, is like you capture them before they fall. But I think Jasper, my memory serves right, was at least somewhere around Benedict's lot.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
You know, so you're in the right, and that's what I'm talking about, the open door. Like Benedict had a really good open door back then. They seemed to crop up, you know, with Cunmo and Will, etc. when they were all there. So you find the right group. You don't need a massive group, but can you get 2 or 3, 4 or 5? Like now, what we've got at Brunel, we've got men that I never thought, you know, we joke, like me and Adam, the you know, old school coaches here, are the weakest ones here, because we're only snatching, you know, 100 on our old bones or something. So, you know, I think that's where the biggest, the recruitment, you've got the issue, and then you've got retention through the years where you could get to GB. But I know the main thing that works and has always worked is that you have a community of athletes and friends that make the sport sustainable in that time. And Callard always said it is like, the only job we've got as coaches really is to make sure that person can train the sport for 10 years. How do we do that? And I think that's what we've got to ask ourselves. And it's not by having a really commercial gym that changes from CrossFit to then High Rocks and then has 2 platforms in the corner and there's no one training the sport. I don't think that's going to be the best way to do it. It's ideally, you know, speaking to Steve in Newcastle, where you've got, you know, significant help with the council and the government in terms of either rate relief or whatever, that kind of allows you to run a really good community club base that can have his open door for someone to come in and train without having to charge them £200 a month. Because in the south, you look at the business rates, you look at the rent, and then you look at staffing costs and who's got the time to do it, and then how many people actually want to do weightlifting. You know, it's great that MEMS moved closer to Central, but like we all know that meant one other club's gone, really. That's one less place to train weightlifting in Central. And, you know, Mem's the best guy who's going to put his time into the Central out of anyone I know, for sure. But it would be nice to have the financial capability in Central for an ecosystem of clubs to exist like the old days, where we used to have, you know, the London League apparently in the 70s, I think Pearman said there used to be like 40 clubs in it. Right,
wow.
Because there was YMCA clubs everywhere, you know, working men's clubs. The rent was peanuts, and it was just, you know, all you need a few bars and plates and a basement, and you make a club. Can't do that anymore. It's not possible, you know. And that's what Dave Sawyer was saying. It's like you just can't do what you used to do in the finances. So then we need somewhere in the middle between a commercial product and a community product, because the community is really where the nuts and bolts of producing a long-term sustainable weightlifting club is people that want to train for 10 years, and it's not, you know, F45 or something like that.
I think that sort of essentially answered the last question that I had, because it was around community, because we've always had this running theme almost in every episode of the podcast, haven't we, about community and weightlifting being about the community. And my favourite thing about weightlifting is the community. But there is this massive gap of clubs. So from a personal perspective, we train out of a pure gym. We would rather not train out of a pure gym. We ended up in a pure gym because they had platforms.
No hate to pure gym. I appreciate you having platforms and bars.
Literally no hate to pure gym. You know, they're happy for us to drop the bar.
As well seem to be.
If there had been a JD gym, I'd have been in there. But yeah, so it was the only club.
Seen that coming, eh?
It was the only gym near us that had platforms. So.
But we're by ourselves.
But we're by ourselves, yeah.
You said before as well that, you know, mixing when you're rubbing shoulders with, you know, people that are pushing weights, you know, 20 kilos above you, you're able to you know, challenge yourself a bit more. You know, it's
and you get off the energy, don't you? I mean, there's something about the vibe of a club and the community around you compared to us on a platform in a pure gym being looked at like, the fuck are those two doing? Yeah. So I really would just wanted to see how you thought we could, or if there was something that we could do in terms of keeping a community, because it's not just us. There's so many lifters that are in commercial gyms in the corner of a CrossFit gym on their own while everybody else is doing 45 burpees. Or, you know, there's a guy that we really love. We've seen him compete a couple of times, and he's made his own registered weightlifting club, and there's only him in it, Dan something, begins with a P, and he trains in his shed. He trains in his shed, and he's amazing. He's so fucking funny.
Ex-powerlifter.
Something like that. And the first time we ever saw him was at London Weightlifting, and he clean and pressed the last one while screaming. Knew it was a no lift and just loved it anyway.
So strong.
He's such a strong guy.
Yeah.
But he's had to make his own weightlifting club in his shed.
That's amazing, isn't it? Yeah. But Pearman always said, like, our sport has always been basement gyms at home, in your garage, in your sheds, lifting weights, and that's really what our origin of our sport is, because we've never been professional, you know. And I think the worst part of that London 2012 legacy is that, well, at least between the kind of 2002 Manchester funding kind of disappearing for Athens and things like that, that was a big reason why people like Giles Greenwood, Delroy McQueen all quit the sports, that funding loss. Is like you speak to Stuart Cruikshank and his journey. You know, he was kind of that close to professionalised when he was coaching Bisham Abbey and being able to they paid for his accommodation and his food. And then Bisham Abbey they knocked down the building, and then weightlifters are kicked out. So I think, you know, you really look at the journey, and it's never been that professional. It's never been that easy. The clubs have always kind of existed as a kind of someone's back room, and you look at Australia as well, they're training that way still. You know, a lot of the national coaches we meet when we're in the internationals, they say, I've got a double garage. Is this all right?
It was the other one, yeah, all right.
But yeah, he's got a double garage, and we just converted it, put some platforms in, and then, you know, he's like the regional coach out there, you know. And so I think we have to be humble, and that's what my point is, kind of like, you know, I got to travel the world, seeing, you know, all these sports have professional coaches, and, you know, that kind of magic facade of thinking, you know, you've got the kind of Russian history of you know, Alexiev and Dave Riggott and stuff like that, and then you actually start looking at it, and you look at Abadjiev and you say, these guys are, you know, obsessive dudes that lifted heavy weights. And, you know, yes, there were times where the system became really professional and there was funding there and the support team was there. You look at Carlos with his, you know, kind of masseuse all the time, everywhere. But, you know, Carlos would have been lifting in a garage, in a small gym, you know, kind of where, or at least, you know, a kind of very unflashy place. And you'd go to Dianabad, where the national team was training when we went there, and, you know, the walls all had posters on them, and I said, why you got so many posters all over the place? And they said, there's punch marks behind them. You know, they didn't want to refurb them. And then you go to the toilet, and the lights aren't working in the toilet, so you're kind of peeing in the dark. And then I said, you know, when you watch Abadjiev videos, he's very big on the sauna. And I said, do you guys use the sauna every day? And they said, like once a month. And they're like, it's a bit broken. And then I went to the showers are all broken, you know. And my best story from Bulgaria was, you know, we went in and I'm like, wow, you know, this is cool, so much history, da da da. And then I said, where's your like kind of accessory room, like dumbbells? And the guy looked at me and he was like, I said, this is it. I said, what do you mean this is? I said, you just got platforms. There was maybe a pommel horse you could hook your legs to do back extensions. That was it. Everything else barbell. And I said, what if you hurt your elbow, you hurt your back? And he just picks up the bar and he goes, you just do this.
This is like your reaction to S&C, isn't it? It's like, what S&C?
Yeah. And I think I told Mem because they were taking me through the program, and I said, like, what's this day? And he goes, snatch to max, including jerk to max. Okay, cool. That day, and then he's like, snatch to max. And then on a Wednesday, I was like, what's this? And they go, block snatch. And I was like, no way you do block snatch. He goes, yeah, it's new. It's a new thing. But you could start working out what the max looks like in this kind of Cyrillic. Yeah, so funny. But there's nothing flashy about high level weightlifting. I think that's clear that we see a lot of flashiness on the top, and the coverage like Weightlifting House has done to kind of show a lot more background and stuff. But you know what the Colombians are going through with the funding they've got out there. Like, it's not flashy, and I think, there's nothing wrong with us. I think it's beautiful that our sport is grown through community clubs. That people like Zoe Smith came up in like the only girl training in Europa. Yeah. And like the stories of like Callard would ring up Jack on a Sunday and be like, "Do you want to train today?" And he'll be like, "No." And he'd be like, "Well, I'm outside your house." That story, right?
He told us that. He said he sat outside his house and made him come out.
Exactly. That's Callard putting the time in to make sure these kids can come and train. And that's the kind of attitude we took. Like I gave Bella a platform and barbell in COVID so that she could carry on training. And I think that's what luckily her mum didn't mind a platform in the living room. I think they're still in there now, I think they said, and it's the dining rooms on top. But I think that's where we got to accept, like, our sport is especially with funding fluctuations, we have to make that part sustainable. How does that look sustainable? I think it's a tough problem in today's inflation and kind of economic problems we've got. But if you look at Europa before they moved to their new place, it was the smallest, tiny little gym. It was like this size. Yeah. This size, and they all worked in, 3 or 4 to a platform, getting stuck in, and you start normalising weights, and that's really what a weightlifting club is for. Is when you have the worst day. Sounds like a good way. When you're having the worst day lifting, and you're with your friends or your coaches there to back you up. Amelie came in the other day and she was knackered. Really tough kind of energy drop. And she's going to Europeans, and you're like, and if you're by yourself sitting in that Pure Gym, you just think,
can't be asked.
Yeah, let's pack away. Let's go to the sauna. If they've got a sauna, it's Pure Gym.
Pure Gym.
But like with our guys, it's like we average out our performance. So even on the bad days, you can bring yourself up to normal because you've got your team behind you. And that's always been the philosophy of really what a weightlifting club is. And I think that's what in the world with the modern online side struggles to capture, is that I want my guys to come in when they feel crap, because that's the day that you're getting something out of it. We can find some way to do it. If your shoulder hurts, we do squat. If your knee hurts, we'll do press.
You'll go away feeling better.
And that's what makes me a bit sad if like some of our guys go, I don't feel like it tonight, I'm not coming in or whatever. And it's like, you're not just there for yourself, you're there for your team. Every time I'm there, if someone like, I don't know, like Amelie's a pretty good technician, there's only going to be 1 or 2 things you're going to say in a session that's going to be that, but it's more about weight choices. I'm there to make sure she makes better decisions, but then someone like maybe James, who's quite new but lifting massive weights, and might be there to make sure he actually holds everything down a bit, and we actually do make sure he doesn't press his jerk out or something like that. He's worked very hard on that. But within that section, James will say to Amelie when she's about to lift, like, come on, Amelie, and vice versa. And that kind of, that interaction there, that's what a weightlifting club is meant to bring together. We facilitate, a social interaction that enables people to perform better. And you can't get that online, And I think we're getting to a point where if we copy and paste bodybuilding style, which is headphones in, head down, grind yourself, on a calorie deficit or something, we're really not capturing what weightlifting is. Weightlifting is more like wrestling, or more like I don't know, a boxing club, or without getting smashed in your face, And I've been able to do some wrestling because my girlfriend does started doing the freestyle wrestling, and that's kind of why we started talking as well. Was I thought, this is crazy, it's a super cool sport, body weight exercises that a lot of the time, like Armenia, the wrestlers and weightlifters are in the same training center because the spirit's the same, right? It's kind of, again, same kind of crazy people do wrestling, and that kind of thing. That's really what the dream. That imagine you had 10 to 20 clubs like that around the UK that you could walk in, and there's a welcoming vibe, but there's also a kind of role modelling that goes through the thing, and that's why what I've worked really hard to, especially post COVID. Like Solomon and Omar were like our last kind of guys. They graduated, they're at MEMS now, but that took them. They were 5-6 years in the sport by that point, and to lose people over COVID meant we had to build back men from scratch. And like I say, Jess worked in, and I think she muscle snatched like 60 or something, or something ridiculous, no foot power or 60 or something. No idea if she was any good, how to do it. It's just a S&C coach for judo said, you're so rubbish at weightlifting, you'll never be good. So she went and did that, but she walks in, she's already so strong. That girl's always going to be strong. I don't have to you have to work on the technique hell of a lot, but that level of strength that she had, she got to nationals in a short time. But like you say, you said with your overhead journey, I'm sure you're similar to me, is like, the first 2 years are just rough. Like that start position does not even feel possible. Everything hurts. And I think, how do you, we're lucky now that I can have, Steve's been with us a long time. He's like one of our oldest men now that's, obviously, lifting. But we had, Adam broke his leg in COVID. He dropped the snatch behind him, snapped his tib fib straight half. So he never coached before COVID. After COVID, as a way to keep himself still involved in the gym, he had the wisdom of being in the sport a long time. So he saved our club, really, because he was able to be there when I couldn't be there, when I was travelling with British weightlifting. Yeah. Those people, Europa used to have 5-6 of those. They had Terry Tucker, they had all these guys that had so much history in the sport that when someone walks into that gym, if Callard's not there, I went to Europa once, it was just me and Terry Tucker, and I found out Terry Tucker was the best man at my coach's wedding. These guys go back a long way. Yeah. Rest in peace, Terry. But not many gyms can do that anymore. They don't have the history of a role model that's going to be there, that's not there to make money off you, but is actually there to help you be a better athlete or learn the sport more. And that's that volunteering side that you guys are phenomenal at. That I think it's a rare quality to have in today's world. So that community side, really, like, I think everyone needs to pay their bills. I really do. I think you've got to be able to have a roof over your head and pay for whatever. But what do you do with the extra bit of time? And if it's your family, I understand it. I know Mark Hill had to do a lot when he had a kid and with Locker, and now he's kind of got a bit more time, I think. But we all have to make sacrifices. Same with Callard with his work and stuff like that. But if you can have some people in your gym at some point that are always willing to give it, like we've got Holly obviously here that gives her time all the time to the sport, despite having a full-time job, despite having a husband, despite having a cat. Two. I think that's really is the spirit of weightlifting, is that stuff that George Manners did, that Pearman did, that gave their time up and endless amounts of time. But you can't ask people to do it. I think you have to want to do it. But I think the where we're at now, we've got a new generation of TOs and a new generation of people that the talent and quality and the types of people is better than ever we've ever had it. So that's the positive side, I think, to our sport now, is that there's so much fresh blood, there's so many people from different backgrounds. But the real crux, I don't want to detour on a massive topic here, but I studied anthropology before. So I look at it very much from like, social kind of connection way of our sport and what has our sport been. And yes, I said it was a basement gym, but if you actually look at it, we were a working class sport, just like boxing was. CrossFit's made it a middle class sport. Mm-hmm. And with middle class sports comes the price tag, comes the drop in volunteering, also comes the types of people that are doing our sport is very different. And Romania have the same problem. So now that Romania's got, better salaries and everything like that, the men don't want to do it. They'll just get an office job. Before, if you could make €1 million off weightlifting, like, you would do it. You'd win your Olympic medal and you'd settle. But now it's easier just to get an office job. And I think we have to ask that as a sport of like, if we're going to make better men, that's jumping back to a topic though, but if we're going to make better men, we have to think about the types of how do we rate grit in an athlete, like how tough are these kids, because the reason, you know, with all due respect, a lot of the men give up is because that gap to international is too high. It's too much of a gap. You have to want to push every day to be better and get there. And I think that quality is not often common when you grew up in a softer environment. You know, I didn't grow up in like some sort of hard life, but I like challenge. So I think it's possible. Same, like I believe Chris Murray as well, with a rugby background, that kind of hard sport makes you want to do weightlifting. So I think if you talk about, to jump back to your topic, is really about, you know, it is somewhat a class issue with regards to, you know, if you've got some kid that's got nothing, and they want to make themselves a champion, you hear about, you know, some of those boxers' backgrounds, like they're really rough, that kind of wires them to take those hits and push beyond anything else. And I think we have to know that these boys probably have to push themselves beyond it. So kind of the final point, so if we can solve the recruitment issue, have an open door policy, have affordable clubs, have volunteers, have role models in that place, then yes, we've got a national program now that someone can essentially go to Nottingham and get close to, you know, fairly full-time-ish coaching and a support network, physios, etc. Which I don't think is good for everybody, by the way. I think some people, I don't think university is a great option for a lot of people. I think, you know, staying at home, having your support network, your friends, your family, your work, whatever, is probably good for quite a lot of proportion. But I think that option needs to exist. You know, the option needs to be there for them to want to do that. What's the incentive to actually do well? You know, and I think that's probably the biggest challenge all sports in the UK have that are UK sport lottery funded is, why is it Romania you get, you know, 250 grand or whatever it was for an Olympic medal? You know, the rumour was that Albania give you like $1 million or something, I don't know. You know, China, you're going to be sorted for life. You know, you get a pension for life. Romania, Moldova, if you win any medal, really, you start paying you months, and even when you retire at 25, they'll pay you every month your salary, right? Some to keep going your pension. Korea is the same. Where's our incentive that goes beyond, here's your yearly funding for UK sport, right? Because we don't want to fund someone to train. We want to incentivize someone to win. Yep. And that's where I think when you talk about those men retaining that ambition at 18, if you go, look, if you got the talent, you know, you're on this trajectory and you've got, you know, 5 years till, let's say, you know, you're talking to them soon, you can go Brisbane or something like that, and you go, if you win, you'll get 250 grand, you'll get 500 grand, you'll get, you know, the dream, £1 million, whatever it is. UK sport can't offer that. You know, Emily got a handshake, right? You know, she should be sorted for life, in my opinion, for what she's done to our sport. She's transformed our sport in the public eye, and everything she's done in terms of her personality as well. You know, but she still has to work, right?
Yeah, she shouldn't have to be fighting for sponsorship, should she? And
it's crazy.
It's mad, yeah.
So I think that's our biggest hurdle, and that's really where I'd love British weightlifting to put more resources into a strategy as to how do we incentivise getting better. Because once you get that UK sport funding, as long as you're staying within, you know, world standard, they're going to carry you to fund to the Olympic Games. Yes, if you don't improve, you'll probably get dropped off. But like, apart from Campbell, you know, who can walk into the Olympic Games and just smash it to pieces, if you know you're going to be, say, bottom place at the Olympic Games, there's not really an incentive to add, you know, to catch up with Carlos, is there? There's no incentive, because the work that you have to do is so disproportionate to the reward you're going to get. And I think that's kind of why my belief in our sport, when I talk about the community gyms, the basement, the clubs, etc., is that's why I can sleep at night, because I'm happy that even if you just do your best for yourself, that you enjoy the sport, and you know, someone's goal is just to make national championships, just turn up the national, or hit the total. You can't even get an invite, but you can hit a total to a national championships. You've done really well in the sport, right? And I think that's what we have to put our sights in as a club, because the other gaps quite hard to push for, unless, you know, someone like James or Tom or Steve or Jess or whatever. I mean, these guys just walk in and you know they've got what it takes to get to that GB level.
Yeah.
But it's enjoyment, right? Do you enjoy the journey? And I don't think you would if you get to 10 years and you're injured and you're poor and you haven't got
there's no backup.
And you've got no education as well, right? That was a big thing. I think they pulled Zoe Smith out of her education to do the Olympic Games. And Carol wasn't happy about that because she had to go back and do her education afterwards. She doesn't mind me saying that. But I think that's a huge, it shouldn't ruin your life. It should make your life better.
I think there's so much about so many of the athletes that people just don't know. So I think we're really privileged because of the access that we get, not just as TOs, but because we do the podcast, because we talk to so many people. We generally, I think, know more about athlete backgrounds, coaches' backgrounds, club backgrounds.
Hey, you guys are amazing for that. That's kind of, but it's unusual to know so much, right?
But that's what keeps us going. I think for me, whenever we have, so this is, we've had a couple of months off to the bar, we finished season 2, and it gets to the point where you're itching to get back to it because we went to the Talent ID comp and I just sat there and was like, I can't believe all this is happening and nobody knows. They're all doing that force testing stuff and then they get their dinner and then they do this and they do that and they do all this other stuff, and to see it was amazing.
But the biggest challenge is the performance team are so busy that, like I always said to Stuart, we need a social media person who's actually saying what we're doing because no one knows what you're doing. And now me leaving, I even don't know what they're doing, right? It's only when I catch up with Stu or Sharm or someone and just trying to ask a question about something, then we catch up. But
we're hoping to infiltrate.
It'd be really great. And I think even if, because I said at the time, I was like, if we've got too much content or it's not matching with the main page, then why not have our own BWL Performance Instagram just to keep the information rolling? Because I think it's no secret. Like Stuart Martin, he works like a horse, he's a workhorse. So you've got someone who's so busy all the time across the programs that there's no time to reflect on how do you present that publicly about what you've done. So you end up getting hearsay, and the hearsay becomes quite toxic towards the community where people don't really know what's going on. And someone rings me up and goes, "You guys need to be doing this." And you're like, "We literally are." So we are doing it, right? Yeah. So I think that's always been a challenge when you're busy, and especially when, I don't know how well you guys know, but obviously as an organisation, you've got the performance teams funded essentially by UK Sport England, and then you've got the organisation, which usually things like courses and etc. membership stuff funds that, and I think that naturally leads the high pressure on the UK Sport funding being hit the objective set or agreed to, and then you've got your community to take care of on the other side, and you end up getting a natural split in communication between how do you deliver that to the public, because I have a lot of coaches say I keep getting coaching course adverts and stuff like that, and I think all I get is coaching course adverts.
Me too.
If you're picking the wrong people to advertise to, stop advertising to people already with them. But by the same token, I'm sure everyone that's already a coach would love to know about that Talent ID Day, what went down, who lifted what, how was it set up. It's a great story, right?
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting because there's two sides to that, and one is that part. It's the what's the governing body or what's actually happening to produce these the next round of athletes coming through, but then also we talked about the retention bit, and I think if you want to make it a professional sport or an elite sport, treating it like that is going to do that, and that investment into, as we saw some of the Talent ID lot there going through all that force plate stuff, and when as I remember doing that in rugby days, and it's like, oh, wow, I'm in with the big boys. They're actually investing into my progression here. They had a sports nutritionist there. They did interviews. What are your goals? How are you eating? So, what's happening in your life in your training? It's like all of a sudden, actually, they're investing in me. I need to invest back.
Exactly.
So it's really interesting, and that whole thing of no one sees that.
Yeah, and I mean,
we're really privileged.
When we were there, I said to Amy Kirby that I think part of it for me is I'm invested in those younger athletes mainly because of the privileged position we're in the sense of even if you just think about being a TO, like sitting at the marshals table and watching them from I remember watching Isaac Bluff at his first age groups, and talking to Nigel and taking something Nigel said about it starts at the chalk bin and bringing it back to Aaron and being like, right, when we train now, we're living by it. It starts at the chalk bin.
That's great.
And so you do just naturally get invested in their story. And Eliza is another one for me, and I hope she won't mind me saying it, but the first time that she was at it was either the English or the British, I think it's the English, she was another one that tried to kill me, threw the barbell at me, and it bounced off the Birmingham thing, dented the Birmingham thing, and she got really upset. It was her first major comp, but she was incredible. I remember coming off and saying to you, she must only be 16, and the weight that she lifted and the way that she moved was something that I knew that we should watch for. And so now I watch her on Instagram. I watch her do her pull-ups. I watch her do her jerks. I watch all of that because I'm invested from the time she tried to kill me with the barbell. So
it's a common theme, really.
It is, isn't it, right? Obviously, people are trying to say something about me as centre ref, but which I hate. It's the worst job is being a ref. But if you got to see all of that side from the performance pathway and the talent ID and everything that BWL are doing, we would have so many more people invested in the stories of our athletes, which I think then goes back to what we were talking about in terms of rivalries, competition, people not getting bored. You'd already know who's training together, whose numbers are, because Sarah Davies and I think it was Bella that sort of knocking off of one another, and every time one of them one up to the other, and you have to be really into either following their Instagram journeys or into the sport to know who's got those little friendly rivalries going on, and if you're not, then it's boring.
Random. It's random, isn't it?
Yeah. So I think there is something there about how we communicate that, or how we share that, and how we can use it to make people more engaged with weightlifting as a whole, because that was incredible. All of everything we've done at Nottingham has been incredible to see. I just wish we could share it with more people in a more engaging way. Definitely.
Take a kit.
That and sneak in to do a session with them. But I mean, speaking of though, it is 5 weeks now?
5 weeks to the British. So I mean, you're going to be turning up au naturel without the BWL.
And I think not all the athletes will be doing it, especially those aimed at either Commonwealth Games or even those that have done the run for the Commonwealth Games that don't make it. It's not quite a quick turnaround if you're already kind of, mentally, physically on that peak. To then just do a British for the sake of doing a British. And I think it's unusual to have such a long break in that middle bit, but probably a welcome break for quite a few of them.
But British Championships, we also have Team USA Juniors coming across. Which is going to be amazing, really.
True. Yeah, I mean, it always reminds me of the time. We had Team USA. We had Ilya actually came after his ban, and Romania came, China came to the British Championships. Absolutely mad that was. It's the weirdest thing I've ever seen, because the actual story with Ilya at that time was because he was post ban at that point. Prior to Bucks, where I was like a fanboy. I thought, you know what, I'm gonna stay away from him, drug cheat. I want to talk to him, and Mem messaged me before, and he said, I don't know how much I can tell the details of this person's age, but someone's girlfriend was competing at the same time as the boyfriend. So Mem said, can you coach his girlfriend? So I look at the start list, and I'm like, I can't see her anywhere. And I said, this the boyfriend's about 24 at the time. And I said, I can't find it anywhere. So I thought, no way she's a Masters. So I look at the Masters and I'm like, oh my God, she's a Masters. And she looks young, right? Still looks young now. And so I ended up coaching her. And then she goes, look, I actually taught Ilya English lessons when he was over here for the Bucks time. She didn't do weightlifting back then. But he was flirting all the time and all this stuff. And then she said he was terrible English, right? So anyway, he actually ends up being in the same group as her boyfriend at the same time, right? So there's kind of he fancied her, we assume, and then he's the boyfriend's lifting directly against this multiple time world champion, but he's weak because he's not off the steroids. So I think he only ended up clean and jerking like 180 or something, which is like less than his snatch, right? So, but anyway, he ran up to us while I was about to start warming her up. So I just switched into a fanboy. I just, because he came over with his smile, I'm smiling, everybody's smiling. I was like, "Hi, nice to meet you." All this stuff. English was terrible. Anyway, he obviously beat the boyfriend a bit, but not that much.
Not by that much. Yeah. I mean, I loved the one where Salford came over.
Yeah.
I was on the Marshall's table for that one, and again,
that was right before Paris. She was in big numbers.
Yeah, the vibe between her and Emily, and it was just lovely watching them.
I was reffing.
Yeah. I know. Well, I got the best job. I was on the Marshall's table.
But reffing Emily Campbell and Salford.
Watching them warm up and then watching them take their lifts, like it was. I think that's something really special. So having USA come over, the juniors, I think that's a real privilege for us. And I'm not sure that I'm hoping that we can get a little sound clip of this out, because I'm not sure enough people know to just buy a ticket, because...
But you look at USA now, like they're the next powerhouse, right? They got depth that we can't match. And they talk about culture, they got a strength culture that we can't match. The S&C in school, high schools.
Everywhere, yeah.
They don't have the class system, so CrossFit gyms aren't as crazy expensive as ours are. It's a bit more like, you do a bit of sport, you do a bit of weightlifting, and then, you're really good. Yeah. Gymnastics straight over. But, we're always 10 years behind the States in terms of our kind of sport and fitness and health and things like that.
Just their college, their college gyms are
unbelievable, such high quality.
This is why I'm so excited to see the juniors, though, because you think Hampton and Olivia, and they've all just come out of the juniors, and they are incredible. And so I think there's something about the fact that they're bringing their juniors, and again, for me, that investment of I'm getting to see them before I'm going to get to see them on a big stage, because that those athletes are going to be good.
Generation, won't they?
They are, and we're going to get the opportunity to see them against our athletes on a platform. And that again is where that rivalry thing comes in for me. Like, who are you pitching against each other? Who am I looking at and thinking you're most like that person? And I don't know.
But they've embraced the non-centralized system, right? They've become, their personal coaches will come out with them. It's not as centrally managed as as you'd think, I suppose, compared to other countries. And it's kind of accepting the fact that geography, travel times, everything like that's a challenge, and just getting on with it and doing the best you can, but having the incentives to want to do better. I think obviously when you're a really competitive country internally, it really helps. And I think that's the only thing that we can kind of do at that time is when we had like Sarah, Zoe, Emily all lifting around the same weights, it really pushed all three of them to accelerate beyond that. Emily Musket, not Kelly. And I think that's what America's done so amazingly, and we keep seeing these kids come out of nowhere, and they're just so talented, so strong, but with such a variety of coaches. Yeah,
but they spotlight that as well, which is something that I'm going to go back to saying that we don't do, is spotlight those trade-offs. So again, I'll go to Aaron and Sarah Davies at the English, the same one where Salford and
Emily. That was amazing, that one. Yeah. The one where Erin drops. I always take the mick out of Erin dropping after the 27
and
or
Sarah's screaming for her to beat her own record. So it was Sarah's record, and she was cheering for Erin something chronic to make the lift, and she didn't make the lift. But it was the rivalry there.
Erin didn't need to do that weight apart from the fact Sarah's
she was screaming for her. So it was a friendly rivalry, but it still was a rivalry. And again, I don't know that anybody in the audience really understood what was going on. But these pockets of competition are happening between our athletes, and America will shine a light on that and say, look at these two.
They've got showbiz, right? Their culture is showbiz. I think the underhand British way.
It doesn't play in our
favour, does it? No, we don't do that.
Don't show off.
I walked into this gym years ago. One of the first times I started training here, and I walked past and I was like, that looks like Usain Bolt. I was like... So maybe it's just another sprinter. I don't know, same tall guy, but weird. Anyway, so I went and I said, "Is that guy Usain Bolt?" And Mike was like, "Yeah, it is." And I was like, "Why is no one fussed?" And he's like, "We don't do that."
It's so strange you mentioned that, because I went to a restaurant in Richmond and he was 2 tables down. And
really?
I was like, I'm pretty sure that's Usain Bolt. Pretty sure that's Usain Bolt. Yeah, it is.
Did you British it? Did you say?
Everybody did. Yeah, everybody did.
We did it with Emily Campbell. Remember that when we were at...
This is when we were proper fanboy fangirl at the service station.
Yeah, so it was all in the queue at Leon's at some service station trying to get some food. And there was Emily Campbell, and we were like, it's Emily Campbell.
Yeah.
We wouldn't go over, and we bloody reffed her that, later on. It's like, but we can't go over and speak to her.
Yeah. I mean, now I'd go up and give her a hug, but we've reached that point. Back then, it was back when TOs and athletes and coaches the TOs didn't hate the athletes and the coaches, otherwise we wouldn't have been there, but there was that animosity that we've tried really hard to break down. So I would never have approached her in the Leon. Not that I think she had any problem with TOs whatsoever, but I wouldn't have done. As a TO, I'd have been I think the rivalry
between TOs and coaches is worse. I remember packing up for the British back when I worked for BWL. You always got stuck in with setup and D-rig, and I coached all weekend or something. I think that was the time I competed as well. That maybe that one might have been in English, but we packed away all into the evening. About 12 o'clock at night, we got back, and they ordered some food for us. And I just sat around, and they were literally moaning about how coaches don't know the rules. And I was sitting there, and I was like, I swear to God, I always have this the other way around with coaches saying TOs do not know the rules. But I shapeshifted. I was like, they're idiots. They're all idiots. They don't know what they're talking about. Yeah.
I think it's quite a nice position we've got to now, though. I mean, I would hope
Straddling.
So. My experience is generally nice. There's not a single coach that doesn't come over and give me a hug or say hello or shake my hand. And even...
But we know you love the sport, and that's the difference of I think it's if we're all on the same. But that's why I did the stuff I did, trying to do the event stuff. Even though I'm meant to be coaching this side, I want to make better events for the athletes. I want to make a better experience for everyone to be there and make the sport better. And if we're all on that same page.
Yeah,
it suddenly changes the whole relationship with each other.
Yeah.
Rather than we're in our own lane trying to do our own thing, screw everybody else, it's me. Or, like we're saying, is where's the vision? We don't have a joined up vision at the moment, and I think that's the biggest problem, is what does the future look like? And if we can't get that kind of pixelated picture together, because you can talk about BWL's vision and mission, etc., but that they've got their agenda as an NGB, but if you actually look at most sports, it's not really the NGB that drives the kind of fame and the popularity of the sport. It's actually the media people. It's Weightlifting House, is what you guys do. It's the stuff that Grip and Rip's trying to go down a different direction with, stuff like that. And I think you've got this. You need an ecosystem of variety but we're all still moving towards the forward part. And I think that's what we're struggling with. Because I don't think there's any connection between Weightlifting House and the clubs on the ground now. No. Clubs on the ground wear their kit, buy the kit, watch the videos, we all do. But there's loads that can bridge that gap between, really public media and the local clubs that we've never really managed to do very well at all. Yeah. And like you said, telling that story. We had Grip and Rip down here years ago interviewing Jess, trying to do that, because we have such a funny dynamic, because you've got Steve, who doesn't talk that much, versus Jess, who talks all the time, mid-lift as well, she talks, and that kind of dynamic in a morning session when we used to train was just hilarious, because you've got such contrast of personalities. That's the stories I love, of kind of seeing their day to day and the real bringing a human side to these massive weights. My vivid memory is sitting in the sauna with Solfrid at a German camp. She had Netflix on in the corner, and me and who were we saunaing with? I don't think it was Chris, someone else anyway. And we go into the sauna, and then she's like, oh, okay, because she must just be in the sauna by herself all the time, because I think didn't really have. She was just staying in an Airbnb while she trained in Germany. She's just been watching a series every single day in the sauna by herself, and it's just hilarious. That's the strongest person I know, pound for pound.
Just chilling with Netflix.
Just watching Netflix. So just hilarious moments that you could capture that on a reality TV show. The weightlifting's irrelevant. You watch MotoGP, background stories, F1 stories and stuff. It's the human side to all those sports that make it interesting.
Yeah,
they don't show much of the sport.
What you've just said there just reminds me of last year's books, when we did get Steve. And we got Steve for an interview, and he came with his medal and his sunglasses, and he said about 4 words, but it was a great 4 words. It was
mirrors,
just
proper aviator mirrors.
It was one of my favourite ones to put out, because he'd never agreed to do an interview before, and he did, and he didn't say a lot, but he said enough for you to know who Steve was. And it was good. It was good. Yeah. I love that though, because that's what people should know.
Exactly,
You need to get to know the people.
Exactly. The best interview I remember was a German. Germans are known for their lack of enthusiasm in certain things, and he Nico Müller won the European Championships. You know, clean country, lifting a massive weight. Back when we hadn't really seen it for a long time, because I think Max Lang never really managed it.
Yeah.
So Müller comes out, he lifts like a robot anyway, because he's just so technically consistent.
Mm.
And then they, you think you win one of the biggest, to win the European Championships, massive career highlight. And they said, how do you feel? What's next? And he's like, there could have been a language barrier in his defence, but he just says, now I do many trainings. Thank you to coach, and that was it.
Yeah.
And I was like, we haven't quite had media training in weightlifting, have we? We're not quite. I was like, okay, yeah, maybe there's not a background story to tell there.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's my favourite bit.
Work hard.
Yeah. That's my favourite bit is getting the background stories, or trying to anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. I think it's nice that that we've managed to get across that refs don't want to give a red light, and that actually everybody's there for everybody's there for the same reason, and it's for the person on the platform.
Yep.
Yeah, I do think there's got to be a reflection. Sometimes you see tier 3s, the refereeings.
Oh yeah.
Random. But bucks to me is the biggest hurdle to educate. My God, the worst standard of athlete knowledge. Not the lifting. It's like people turning up in. I don't know if you've been to bucks, but
we've done a couple.
People turning up in their shoes, no ID, full kit, like standing on the scales. That's what we do.
Yeah.
Like national championships, and I thought someone could have at least given like a guideline list to be like, at least bring an ID. That'll be a good start, and you have to weigh in your suit.
Yeah. Read the rules.
Yeah. Read the rules. But there's not really head coaches in these universities, or at least established clubs, so people are turning up. They've done one tier 3.
Yeah.
And I was laughing because I thought, my God, that must be a lot of work for the TOs, because your press out's obviously higher rate, or the running around. A bit more old school. That's what I remember bucks was like. The first bucks I did, you could choose whether you want to be an advanced or novice.
Mm.
So everyone in the heavyweights thought, you know what, I'll go in the novice and I'll win.
And then I'll get away with the press out.
And Ross, he thought, I've done a few comps, so I'll go in the advanced one. And he was the only one in there, so he won. And I think it ran over by about 4 hours in Sheffield Hallam. Funny, so old school those. That was one day you get the whole of bucks done. Crazy.
Jeez.
Yeah, no, I don't. Bucks is not my favourite. We didn't do this year's, but that was because we were in Nottingham.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not my favourite of them.
It's great entry level to the sport, and I think it's there, but it should have a regional bucks. Yeah. Like other sports have. Almost every other bucks sport has a regional. So you do South, you qualify, and then you go to a nationals. So it's the best of. Yeah. But it's like.
It makes so much more sense.
Yeah. The first time we did it, we won. Brunel won because it was no qualification total, and if you brought as many people as you won, you got points. So we had a bodybuilder turn up, and there's a video of him. I think he's on YouTube or on our old Instagram somewhere, and he literally drops on his neck.
Oh, God.
Don't know how, but I think he was lightheaded after the jerk, and I'm in the background going, nope. He was fine.
Glad he was fine, but
maybe a bit more training. Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely nicer now. I think more of a community. So I'm really looking forward to the British.
Yeah, I am to a certain extent. I've ended up gotten a ticket to the Masters, and I'm lifting as well.
There we go.
So
I'm coaching him.
My one comp a year.
Did you qualify through the British Masters last year? What comp did you do to qualify?
Yeah.
It was. That's how we say it. It's like you can keep doing British as long as you keep doing the other British.
As long as they keep it in, yeah. And with the weight class changes, you managed to snag yourself a British record, didn't you?
Oh, amazing.
Very nice. Happy with that.
What age bracket are you in? Can you tell us?
I'm in the 50 to 55.
Really?
Yeah,
okay,
so 51 this year.
Very good. That's crazy. Yeah, and what about the bodies holding together?
I ache like a fucker.
He just moans.
Everything is falling apart.
It's just moaning.
Yeah.
He just moans, yeah.
Hold it together.
Don't ask, because he won't stop.
I need to shed a couple of pounds as well. So
what weight class are you going for?
88.
88.
So I need to drop to
but this is the last. That'll be like the last one of those categories, right?
Yeah.
Then it moves to, is it 85 and then 95? Am I going crazy?
Can't remember now.
Yes, I think it is. Yeah, because there's 10 kilos per
I'm ready
category.
for 85.
Yeah,
I can't cut anymore.
yeah,
Too lazy for that.
yeah.
If I step back on the platform, the last time I competed BWL comp was English, where Emily Campbell and Enzo coached me because I didn't have a coach, and I bombed out. And then the drug testers came for me at the end of it, and I was just I had, and Georgie Jackson was warming up because I had to coach her in the next group.
Oh no!
And I was like, this is the worst plan I've ever had, and that's why I vowed never to coach it, like unless I've actually got the freedom to do it.
Yeah, to then get tested
idea.
just in case.
I peed quickly though, very quickly, straight back in the back room. Yeah. I think she won silver actually, did well, missed the gold by one lift. Not a bad day in the end, but too stressful. And embarrassing to have two Olympians just like watch you bomb out. It's embarrassing, isn't it? Not
their fault, the pressure.
That's a good point.
There you go. So you can always spin it round somewhere. But yeah, so I assume we'll see you there.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well,
for sure. We'll be in the team.
Thank you very
see
much.
you and the team in about 5 weeks.
Yeah.
And the next episode from us will be a review
Of the British.
So we'll probably be talking about you on that one as well.
And hopefully,
how amazing
a few medals. Yeah,
did.
I know. A little pressure. It's a lot easier when you're coming up. I think a lot easier, less stress. But thank you for having me.
No, it's been a privilege. It's been a long time coming.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you very much, and we'll say goodbye.
Good luck with your lifting, everybody.
Yeah. Good luck for the British.
Yeah.
Bye.
Oh, is that you?
That was well timed.
Is that Google?
You've been listening to The Bar with your hosts Jess Roebuck-Slaney and Aaron Holt. Please be sure to like, subscribe and follow so you don't miss out on the next episode. And check out our website where you can shop for To The Bar and Lu Xiaozhen merchandise, as well as information on our professional services. To The Bar is proud to be partnered with Lu Xiaozhen UK. Thanks again, and we'll see you soon.